So we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our new temporary venue, Indian Springs High School's new Performing Arts Center. Isn't this beautiful? Oh my gosh, isn't this very beautiful? Okay, we're going to go ahead and go to 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance of the flag. Let's see here. Do we have anyone I recognize in the audience? A student board member. Who do we have here? Jocelyn? She raised, I looked at this direction, I saw her hand raised up, so if you can, please. There's a flag. Oh, it's over there. Okay.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and go to 1.3, adoption of the agenda. And before we adopt the agenda, Dr. Marsden, are there any changes?
No changes, Madam President.
Okay, great.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. Let's go to 1.4, inspirational reading by Ms. Rogers.
Thank you. So I was thinking about, there's a lot of times we go throughout the day and then there's days that we celebrate that everyone knows about. But I wanted to just inspire us all with some days in the month of September. So I'm going to do this quickly, starting with the 1st of September. So on the 1st of September, we have the opportunity to celebrate World Beard Day, National No Rhyme Day. The 2nd was National Blueberry Popsicle Day, Mike. September the 3rd was U.S. Bowling League Day. And of course, Labor Day, the first Monday in September. September the 4th was National Newspaper Carrier Day, National Macadamia Nut Day. On the 5th of September was National Cheese Pizza Day. And on September the 6th, National Read a Book Day. September the 7th was National Lazy Moms Day. September the 8th is National Oncology Nurses Day. September the 9th was National Teddy Bear Day and National Wiener Schnitzel Day, and National Pet Memorial Day, and National Grandparent Day. Also, on the 10th is National TV Dinner Day. On the 11th was National Make Your Bed Day, and we also know we celebrated the 11th in memory of 9/11. And in September the 12th, National Chocolate Milkshake Day, National Day of Encouragement. September the 13th is National Kids Take Over the Kitchen Day.
Oh, wow.
We should all love that.
Okay.
National Peanut Day. On September the 14th was National Dr. Hill Virginia Day. National Eat a Hoagie Day, Mike. September the 15th was National Cleanup Day, National Double Cheeseburger Day, and Boys and Girls Club Day for kids. September the 16th was National Play-Doh Day, National Cinnamon Raisin Bread Day, National Working Parent Day, and Wife Appreciation Day. September the 17th was National Apple Dumpling Day and Constitution and Citizen Day. Today is the 18th, correct? And the other one, remember, was National Double Cheeseburger. This is National Cheeseburger Day. Tomorrow will be National Butterscotch Pudding Day. September the 20th will be National Pepperoni Pizza Day. September 21st will be National Pecan Cookie Day. The 22nd, National White Chocolate Day and National Ice Cream Cone Day. The 23rd is National Great American Pot Pie Day. The 24th is National Punctuation Day, so the teachers will love that. September the 25th is National Voter Registration Day. September 26th is National Dumpling Day and National Pancake Day. September the 27th is National Chocolate Milk Day. And September the 28th is National Strawberry Cream Pie Day. And finally, the 30th, oh, I'm sorry, the 29th is National Coffee Day. And then the 30th, finally, is National Love People Day and National Chewing Gum Day.
So move.
Thank you.
That's great. All right, thank you, Ms. Rogers. One of them was the days for having your children. What day was that on? Where they cook for you? They take over the kitchen? Okay. Okay. Yeah, that one's an important one.
September the 13th.
September the 13th. Okay, for all those parents out there. All right, 1.5, swearing in ceremony for the 2018-19 student board member, Jocelyn Mayor. Jocelyn was unable to attend at the last board meeting, and so she's here with us today. So if you can please come forward. Should we go? Yes, let's all join.
You can stand. Come on up. This way. Sure, yeah. Yeah, I think so. This is good. Do we need to move back more for the video? We're okay? Okay. So what a wonderful opportunity to swear in our fourth of our 4 student board members. As you know, we have a student advisory that has about 4 or 5 students from every high school, along with 10 foster and homeless youth who meet with me 5 times a year to give input on the direction of our school. And we wanted students to represent that group at our student board meetings. Our board has asked for student board members that represent our community well, and Jocelyn is such an example of a young person who represents very well. So this is Jocelyn Mayoral, and I will lead her in her oath of office. So Jocelyn, just repeat after me. I, Jocelyn Mayoral,
I, Jocelyn Mayoral,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will take this obligation freely
that I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
All right, give her a big hand. Congratulations. Proud of you. Welcome. And with that, we'll pause for a picture with the board.
Yes, please come back, board members. We still have one more for awards.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad that you've joined us today as we recognize the vital work of our partners and our own employees who work diligently to keep students safe. Our Board of Education and Superintendent Dr. Marsden are delighted to recognize those who have been instrumental in organizing safe routes to school events this year at Jones and Riley Elementary School and coming soon to Enel Roberts Elementary School. Safe Routes to School is a coordinated effort to identify issues that may jeopardize the safety of children as they walk to and from school. Things like discarded furniture, loose dogs, and unsafe walkways are addressed in collaboration with key departments in the city of San Bernardino. Before we call our honorees forward, I would like to invite Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, Dr. Lorraine Perez, to please come to the podium to say a few words.
Thank you, Linda. So I just want to really recognize this team who's here today, and actually the folks that you will see up here are just a part of the team that is so dedicated in partnering with our community, from our city police to our district police, our DA's office, to make events like Safe Routes to School a success. As Linda mentioned, we were excited to have Jones and Riley as our first two schools, and setting the stage and building the capacity to bring on more schools in the future. So we are very excited for all of the work that's happening. We also wanted to extend a huge thank you to the Quality of Life team for cleaning the routes in advance so that our families are able to make a safe route to school, and working with all of our other community members. So at this time, I'd like to thank the team, turn it back over to Linda so she can have them come up to be recognized, but know that on behalf of our entire leadership, we are so grateful for everything that this team does every day.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. I would also like to pause and thank three of our Board of Education members who contributed to the success of Safe Routes to School. Let's hear it for Board Vice President, Mrs. Gwen Rogers, Dr. Margaret Hill and her mom, Mob, and Dr. Scott Wyatt. And now for our recognition, ladies and gentlemen, when your name is called, please come forward to receive a certificate recognizing your work. Before we present any certificates, I also want to thank our City of San Bernardino Quality of Life team, Captain Rich Lawhead and Eileen Hards, and Lieutenant Rob Young, Officers Jay Rutherford and Clint Walton. Let's give them a round of applause. And now we will honor our district employees from Youth Services. Please come forward when I call your name. Youth Services Specialist, Brenda Chow. Nikki Chahesky. Adrian Islas. Maura Vallejo. We also want to honor Leonard Buckner, Assistant Chief Steve Donahue, Valerio Mejia, Juana Moreno, Dr. Robert Moss, and Eric Vatier. If that group could please come forward, we'll take a group picture with all of you. As we prepare for the picture, I also want to acknowledge and thank board member Mr. Danny Tillman for his undying support to this program as well. Let's give Mr. Tillman a big round of applause.
Flores, perhaps you'd like to change spots with someone? Exactly. Mr. Tillman, if you'll just take it, there you go. One more. Thank you very much. The lighting is pretty bad.
All right, thank you so much for that, and thank you for all your service. Let's go ahead and go to, let's see here, 1.8. I guess we're ready for the closed session. 1.7, closed session, public comments. Do we have any blue slips? No? Okay, so then we'll go ahead and go to closed session. We will be back approximately 6:30. Okay? Thank you. Just a note that we were not able to finish closed session, so we will be resuming closed session after the board, at the end of the board meeting. Okay. And with that, we're going to go ahead. Let me see. Do we have 1, 2? We have 4 board members. Okay, great. 3.0. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and read what came out of closed sessions. Requester, Special Education Director, Approver, Assistant Superintendent, Continuous Improvement, SS-18-19-05. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves a settlement agreement number SS-18-19-05 in the amount of $19,950. Be it resolved that the Board of Education authorizes Deborah Love, Purchasing Director, to sign any related documents. Have a motion?
So move.
Okay. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Next one is, be resolved that the Board of Education approves the appointment of the following employee, Kelly Latasha. It has an I in it, so, okay. Director of Child Development Programs, Child Program Development Program, effective dates, work salary, and work year and salary to be determined, funding 0250. Is she here, by the way? No? Okay, I was going to ask you to correct, make sure. Okay, can I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, calling for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. We are now going into, let me make sure I'm in the right spot. 4.1, which is resolution declaring October 2018 Character Education Month. If we can have Dr. Hill read that one, and then Dr. Flores the next one, and then Dr. Wyatt the next after the one. And then also, if you note, we did receive a short version of it, so if you have a little pamphlet here, if you, in front of you, there should be something that Ms. Cunningham added into your sheets that you have in front of you. No? Okay, never mind. Here, Ms. Rogers.
Okay. Coming from me both ways.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Resolution declaring October 2018 Character Education Month. Whereas the Board of Education of the San Bernardino City Unified School District welcomes the opportunity to proclaim that the present and future well-being of our society requires an involved, caring citizenry with good character, and whereas character development is first and foremost and obligation of families and the effort of faith communities, schools, and youth, civic, and human service organizations play a vital role in fostering and promoting good character. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education joins the California State Board of Education in recognizing October 2018 as Character Education Month and encourages all schools to ensure that the development of strong moral character and the promotion of responsible, ethical, and civic-minded behavior are part of the curriculum. So moved.
Okay, any discussion? Not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carried. 4.2, resolution declaring, did I just read that one? Resolution, 4.3, resolution in recognition of, that was that. Resolution declaring October 2018 National Bullying Prevention Month. You're right. I thought I was repeating the same thing. Okay. Dr. Flores? Thank you.
The short version, right?
Yes, please.
Resolution declaring October 2018 National Bullying Prevention Month. Whereas almost 30% of youth in the United States are estimated to be involved in bullying yearly, either as a bully or a victim, and estimated 160,000 students in kindergarten through 12th grade miss school for fear of being bullied. And whereas October is National Bullying Prevention Month, a campaign to raise awareness of bullying, which can include verbal, physical, and most recently, cyberbullying. Therefore, be it resolved that the San Bernardino City Unified School District will work to develop, implement, and monitor policies and programs that foster a positive school climate. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education proclaims its commitment to the education and prevention of bullying, exploring solutions and offering support in recognizing October 2018 as National Bullying Prevention Month. So moved.
Okay, any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 4.3, resolution in recognition of Week of the School Administrator. Dr. Wyatt.
Thank you, Madam President. Whereas the title of school administrator is used to define many education leadership posts such as superintendent, assistant principal, special education and adult education leader, district business official, classified educational leader, and other employees. And whereas the state of California has declared in Education Code 44015.1 the week of October 7th through 13th, 2018 as the week of the school administrator. Therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of the San Diego City Unified School District that all school leaders be commended for their contributions they make to successful student achievement. So move.
Okay, any discussion? I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 5.0, public hearing. I will now open the public hearing. 5.1, Memorandum of Understanding, Effects of Abolishments between the San Bernardino City Unified School District and California School Employees Association. Dr. Marsden, do we have any public comments?
No comment cards on this topic.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Well, first I need a motion. I need a motion from the board. I need a second. And then do we have any discussion on this? Dr. Flores?
I just wanted to ask Dr. Wiseman, so you've gone through a lot of back and forth, and this is what the CSEA agreed to.
That is correct. This was negotiated with CSEA. We do it on an annual basis, abolishments, reductions, and 5.1 as well as 5.2 were ratified by CSEA and its members.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have the second, and now the discussion. So let me go ahead and read this piece. Be it resolved that the Board of Education adopts the Memorandum of Understanding Affects Abolishments between the California School Employees Association and the San Bernardino Unified School District. Let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. Okay, give me a second. I will now move to 5.2, Memorandum of Understanding, Effects of Reductions between the San Bernardino Unified School District and the California School Employees Association. Dr. Marsden, do we have any comment cards on this one?
No public comments.
Okay. Can I have a motion so we can have a discussion? Now, is there any discussion? Seeing none, let me read this part, and then we'll go ahead and call for the vote. Be it resolved that the Board of Education adopts the Memorandum of Understanding, affects the reductions between California School Employees Association and San Bernardino City Unified School District. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. K5.3, K-12 Textbook and Instructional Materials Incentive Program 2018-2019. We don't have any comment cards on this one, right?
No.
Okay. So I need a motion and a second to have the discussion. Okay, any discussion? Dr. Flores? And then Mr. Gallo.
Dr. Marsden, on page 10, on the whereas, like the third up, for whereas where it lists the books, instructional books, I'll read it.
Yes.
Whereas sufficient textbooks and instructional materials were provided to each student, including English learners, which are aligned to the academic content standards and consistent with the cycles and content of curriculum frameworks in the following subjects. It says mathematics, science, history, social science, English language arts. I know for our ELs, I think there are EL versions as well, but it doesn't say that here. And then for our dual language schools, it doesn't say Spanish language arts.
Yeah, I can have Dr. Mitchell address that question. Dr. Mitchell?
So there are a variety of materials, supplemental materials that are attached to these programs. They're not all listed. I'd be happy to give you a list of those materials.
I didn't hear you.
There are a variety of materials and supplemental texts that go along with these adoptions.
But they're not listed?
They're not listed, but I'd be happy to provide that list for you.
Okay, but we're going to pass, are we going to pass this? Are we going to?
Yes, that's the recommendation.
So where are the Spanish language arts?
Again, there's a variety of materials that are not listed here that come with the adoptions, and I'd be happy to provide a list for you. I can't do it right now.
Okay, so we're adopting this, and there's other supplemental materials that are not listed? Is that?
That come alongside the programs listed
Come
here.
alongside with the programs?
Yes.
And so I just, out of curiosity, why aren't they listed, Dr. Marsden?
Dr. Mitchell is addressing your question. So I think what is key is that we have sufficient textbooks and instructional materials for English learners, mathematics, science, history, social science, English language arts,
Right.
or instructional materials provided to each pupil enrolled in foreign language or health classes, laboratory science. So all the classes you just mentioned they're provided. This provides for that. We don't have them individually listed by title.
No, I'm not asking for the title. I just I do see that you have English learners, but we also have dual
Yeah,
language programs.
Right, so down below, those 4 bullets, for example, it'll go on and mentions enrolled in foreign language or health classes and lab
Yeah, I
science.
saw that, but I
Okay.
was just, clarifying that they're also in Spanish.
Yes, so Dr. Mitchell, can you clarify which texts are available in Spanish?
Will do. I'd be happy to get that back to you. I can't do it I can't do it
Okay,
now. I don't have the information.
But
on me now.
they are a part of this.
Yeah, so all of the materials that we use are included in those. In ELL, dual is a program.
So I
in
guess
ELL.
I'm just saying it's not in the body of what we're approving.
Yeah,
But even though you're saying it orally, that's
Yeah.
all I'm saying.
Understood, thank you.
Yeah.
So noted, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Gallo?
I had, is special education included in this? Special education materials, et cetera? How would you know? Because these aren't necessarily, I just look at our moderate to severe that are not on a traditional,
So our
classroom
special ed
path
classes
like
are-
this. And, I've read the report that you guys provided on special education, and that's one of the admonitions and recommendations that West Ed had.
So, Mr. Gallo, any student that's sitting in a classroom that has an IEP will have access to the same materials that their peers do. If they happen to be in our moderate to severe program, then they also have access to core materials and they have their supplemental basics. Many of our students who are in our moderate to severe settings, their IEPs are written to have more time spent in the functional domains, and therefore they'll use more time with the basics program, but they always should have access to core, and the teachers should be using modifications
Yeah, and
and accommodations.
I just read the, kind of the resolution or whatever we're supposed to be approving here, and it says we're basically certifying that those materials are available. And when we've received, audit reports that indicate it's disparate. So what do we do here? I guess the direction from the board is we would say be compliant and have every student, including our special education, fully accessible to both home and school use of appropriate supplemental and textbook materials.
And so continuous improvement would work with Ed Services to make sure that the same materials that a general education student has access to is provided to our special ed students, regardless of the classroom setting.
All right, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Flores, and then Dr. Hill as well. So if we can, maybe Dr. Hill can,
Oh, yeah,
because she
go
hasn't
ahead,
mentioned
yeah.
anything. Dr. Hill, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm interpreting this where I see the whereas sufficient textbooks and instructional materials were provided to each student. And I'm assuming each is every student who's enrolled in our district, including English learners, which could be special ed English learners or special ed non-English learners. But as I read this, I'm interpreting it as every student who's enrolled in this district will have adequate books and materials.
Yes. And Board, this is a resolution where we have certified to the county that these materials are available to all of our students.
So we'll do a better job of languaging this next time you see it, so it does include, Mr. Gallo, your comments. It includes Dr. Hill, Dr. Flores, your comments. And as a reminder, Board, we do, in addition to the audit that we requested of our system, we want to be as compliant as possible. And then also we have the Williams settlement that mandates that we have all textbooks for all kids all the time. And so when there is a breakdown in that, we fortunately get a sense of that every year and frequently throughout the year. And so those are some systems that can help.
All right, and Dr.
Thank you. I
Flores?
was just going to follow up what Mr. Gallo said, just to be more specific, so that, we are inclusive of special needs kids and all the particulars, given that report, criticizes us for that.
Thank you.
And then also, so that we're clear and everybody else is clear. And I just, Dr. Mitchell, I just wanted us to, and I understand what you say for every student, but also, it's just English learners are English learners, not our dual language students. They're learning in Spanish and in English, and soon in Vietnamese, so.
Well, and I don't know if this is just compliance language that's been tested and tried, and, this is the requirement here. So, we're not lawyers, so I just want to make sure.
No, the intention of what you're saying will be captured in future renditions of this, to be sure. But in practice, we'll work to respond to the work the work you talked about, the audit, if you will. We'll respond to all those things. Our goal is to get better. So thank you. This is good. We hear you loud and clear, and so noted. Thank you.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. And then I didn't read this sentence. Be resolved that for the 2018-19 school year, the San Bernardino Unified School District has provided each pupil with sufficient textbooks and instructional materials aligned to the academic content standards and consistent with the cycles and content of the curriculum framework. Okay, now public hearing is now closed. Let's go to 6.0, which is student board members' comments. Jocelyn Mayro. So if you can, as well as right after Kashmir Middleton. So go ahead.
So I'm Yoselin, and I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity, being the new student board member. I'm from Aurora Valley High School. I'm part of their IB program. Most people, they're not aware that Aurora Valley is also an IB school in the district, and I'm really proud of that. We are definitely much smaller than the Cajon IB program, but because of that, we have more contact, like with our coordinator and with our teachers. And we're a smaller group, but we definitely have like stronger bonds, I guess, with the material because we have that one-on-one interaction that helps us learn better. So I'm really proud of that.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Middleton?
And welcome.
Hello. Ooh,
It's okay. Oh, you're fine. You're
I'm
good.
sorry. I'm just gonna scoot back.
It's perfect.
Hi, I'm Casimir Middleton. I'm thankful for this opportunity. Ever since I got announced and got sworn in at school, every teacher has been saying congratulations for like 2 weeks now. And it's exciting, and like they're watching me now and making sure I have a great year. And I'm just excited, and I want to thank the district for all the opportunities that you guys give to us students, and especially I went to the UCAN conference for the African American Black colleges today, and it was actually really exciting. Most districts, they don't get to go to those type of things, and so it's good that you guys give us the opportunity to go, and you get a college to enroll you right on the spot if you have the GPA and test scores. But I'm just excited for the new year and meeting you guys. You guys are like my second family now, and I'm just so excited, and this is just great. And okay, I'm sorry, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you, and I do want to mention that you can feel free to comment on any of the agenda item as well, so don't feel like just because, might be a certain, you want to hold yourself back. This is the opportunity where we want to definitely hear your voice. So please make sure that if you have a question, raise your hand and we'll make sure we call upon you. Okay.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, just like the other board members commented on several of the topics, if you ever want to comment, you can just raise your hand like they have, and then we'll call on you, and then you can make your comments.
Okay, thank you. So then 7.0, public comments. This is the time of the agenda. During the agenda, when the Board of Education is prepared to receive comments from members of the public on any matter within the subject jurisdiction, when recognized, please step to the podium, give your name, and limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. For public comments by 6 or more individuals on any one topic, the time limit is 30 minutes. Please monitor your time. And then just to remind folks, where is the timer? So if you do from the podium, if you look to your right, or your left, that's my right, your left, and it will be right there on the computer. Okay, Dr. Marsden, do we have any time cards?
Thank you, Madam President. We do
comment
have 2 public comment cards, one from Ms. Margaret Paul, who can approach the podium and speak at your pleasure on the district fitness program. And then secondly, we have Mr. Joshua Fleming, who will speak on agenda item 11.30. We'll invite Mr. Fleming to speak when we come to that item. So what we'll actually do, Mr. Fleming, is we'll pull that item out of our consent calendar, and then there will be some discussion among staff, the board members, and then we'll call for your comment, and then the board will close out with their final conversation. So with that, Ms. Paul, welcome. Good evening.
Hi. Hello, board members, cabinet, and student board members. Last spring, I was privileged to attend a conference in Monterey with my friend Dr. Judy Johnson, who's on the Board of Behavioral Sciences for the State Department. And she wanted me to go with her to a workshop called Transforming Trauma. And it was a presentation that was put on and demonstrated the work of healthy environments in response to trauma in schools, which is in the San Francisco United School District. So what I thought was really neat was the second part of the workshop allowed time for individuals and teams to consider our own school systems and focus on ways that we're already working toward being trauma-informed, as well as ways we might improve. Everyone was really impressed when I mentioned that we have a physical fitness program, and I just wanted to pass out this calendar. I'm sure some of you have seen it. They were really impressed when I said, yeah, we have Zumba, boot camp, aerobics, salsa dancing, meditation, mindfulness, yoga, They said, your school district is doing this? And I said, yes. San Bernardino? And I said, mm-hmm. They said, well, how do you guys do that? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to thank him the next time we see him. So I think we're ahead of the game in taking care of our employees as far as the self-care part. I know myself, I go to the mindfulness and to the yoga, and it's after work. I go there, and then I go home, and it's free. So I really want to thank you for providing that for us, because it's just a really wonderful program, and I'm really enjoying it. So thank you so much.
All right,
Ms. Paul,
amazing.
thank you so much for your expressing your pride tonight and your thanks to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, you have a comment, Ms. Middleton?
And
No, even if she walks away, you can still
Oh,
ask. They'll come right back. Press the, is it not working? Yeah, it's not working correctly. Mr. Tillman, can you stretch yours
let's
down that way?
maybe turn it off while you move it, and then turn it back on and try it again.
hello, hello, hello.
No, it's
Okay,
not
so we
working.
can use Ms. Christakis next to you.
Oh,
Okay, I'm about
Yeah, we won't touch them. We'll just
Hello?
turn. There you go.
Okay,
There you go.
I
Good.
just wanted to say, like, can anyone, like, could I sign up to go to any of these meetings, or is it just for kids who go to these certain
I think
schools?
it's for teachers and staff. We have to sign a release. But I don't know the answer to that for sure.
but that's a great question, because I imagine that there might be students interested in classes similar to these that might be fit for them as well. Is that?
Thank you, that was my question, because these seem
Okay.
interesting, and for students, all these things like yoga and self-defense class, because a lot of kids, especially how the world is, they feel like they need to defend themselves with weapons and stuff, so I feel like if they learn these certain type of things, then that'll be good, yeah.
All right, thank you. That could probably be a student board request, possibly to find out how we can implement this for students.
Thank you. And
Thank you so much.
again, Mrs. Paul. And those are all the public comments until we get to our consent calendar, when we'll pull item 11.30.
Dale, I know that you and I may want to sign up for the classes on the 11th and the 25th.
Okay, we'll
The
get
11th.
right on it. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Gallo.
Okay,
All right, those are all the public comments at this portion of the agenda.
okay. So we're going to go ahead and, give me my, okay, closed out. Okay, Dr. Morrison,
Thank you,
having
Ms.
like-
Medina. So we're on item 8.1, and this is an administrative presentation on our community engagement plan. And Dr. Volkemer is going to be providing an update to the board regarding the revision and refinement process for this plan. As you know, we embarked on this journey several years ago. It was really a ready, fire, aim approach, this idea that, hey, we know where we want to go, let's just do as much as we can to get there. And now we're aiming, getting more focused, more specific about the work we do. And Dr. Volkemer is going to share with you the work that is leading us through that refinement process. Dr. Volkemer.
Thank you, Dr. Marsden. Good evening, Board. It's my pleasure to be with you this evening to provide an update on our community engagement plan. You actually last heard an update in January of this year. It's been about 9 months. And basically at that time, we shared with you what our game plan was going to be in terms of refreshing and refining the community engagement plan. And so we're excited to be here this evening to provide an update on our progress. This plan, which you originally approved back in 2013, is the district's strategic plan. It serves as our guiding vision, our North Star, if you will, and it establishes the big ideas that we aspire to for our students and our community. So if I could, oh, you're already at slide 2. Thank you very much. Actually, if we could go back 1. I think we need to go back 1. There you go. So we have 2 key objectives for this evening's presentation. It is just an update. First, we want to share briefly the story of our community engagement plan, just to bring you up to speed. We know that you don't often work on it directly on a day-to-day basis, and so we want to bring you up to speed a little bit. We often talk about the importance of stories as a way to build relationships and get work done, and we want to spend a few moments revisiting where we've been, where we are, and where we're going with the community engagement plan. And then secondly, we want to acknowledge the value and power of what's been working with our community engagement plan and how we have worked and are working to keep it fresh and relevant to our community. Now we're ready for slide 3. So just a bit of history. This is the where we've been piece. If you were directly involved with the district in about 2011, 2012, You'll remember that we had a newly elected board and a newly appointed superintendent who all collectively affirmed the need to develop a strategic plan for the district to serve as a guiding document for our resources and our efforts. To this end, we brought together a very broad-based group of 37 people to develop the first draft of this work. Included in those 37 were board members, parents, community and business leaders, union representatives, and administrators. And the meeting was professionally facilitated by Dr. Lindsay Gunn over the course of 2 days and ultimately led to a draft of a mission statement, guiding beliefs, strategic objectives for students, in other words, what we want for students by the time they leave us, and then 9 strategies designed to move the work forward. This plan was vetted by approximately 1,000 stakeholders at one of our first community gatherings for excellence, where their feedback was taken and built into the plan. And the board ultimately approved this plan in 2013, and it served as our district strategic plan ever since. Next slide, please. Thank you. To ensure that this plan led to significant achievement for students, we developed, and the board has approved, key performance indicators, or what we call KPIs, to serve as a means to demonstrate measurable improvement in our outcomes for students. Our KPIs have undergone a number of revisions, primarily in response to changing accountability systems. In fact, you approved just a couple months ago the latest version of both our local indicators and our state indicators of our community, our key performance indicators. And again, they serve as the measurable evidence that the actions we are taking as part of the community engagement plan are leading to positive outcomes for students. In terms of the action plans themselves, to avoid, as Dr. Marsden has already said, to avoid the old expression, paralysis by analysis, we exercised a ready, fire, aim approach, opting toward a bias for action rather than waiting for perfect conditions. And as is true with most large-scale implementations, we experience varying degrees of completion and success with our original action plans, but by and large, the work was very solid. Next slide. So to reference another old saying, time flies when you're having fun. It's hard to believe that it's already been 5 years since the original adoption of the community engagement plan, which was its original intended shelf life. When we went into the process, our facilitator shared with us that this is a plan that's going to be good for about 3 to 5 years, 5 years on the outside, and it has stood the test of time and served us well. We've seen many successes, and you see on slide 5 some of the key dials we've been able to move. Our graduation rate, as you know, has soared from about 67% to just under 90%, which is a phenomenal increase over 6 years. Our dropout rate has come down. The number of suspensions and citations has gone down significantly. Our EL reclassification rate has come up, as have operational improvements, and we've made incremental academic gains, and we're building the systems to improve on those academic gains. So we're very excited about what the community engagement plan and the work behind it has yielded to the students of the district in terms of building better systems. But as we've approached the inevitability of having to refine the plan, we held working groups with key stakeholders and found that the plan, while generally known, did not permeate deeply into the district. So we met with groups of classified employees, certificated employees, and we said, how deeply does this resonate with you? How much of it do you own? And we found that we weren't quite where we wanted to be through that first kind of iteration of the community engagement plan. And that's why we're saying through focus groups, we understood that the field was moderately aware. So we're going to move to slide 6. Last September, and the timing confirmed that it was time to revisit our community engagement plan. In keeping with tradition, we used a process that fostered strong levels of engagement by various stakeholders. So last September, we pulled together a broad-based group that included any members of the original group of 37. There were a few of us left, still hanging around, still here in the district or in the area. And we augmented this group with parents, teachers, classified representatives, community, and staff members. We brought back the same facilitator, and we spent 2 days reviewing the plan, what progress that we'd made, and weighing this against the future needs of the district. And this meeting led to basically 3 primary outcomes. First, the mission, beliefs, strategic objectives for students, and 9 strategies were affirmed completely as still being very relevant to the work of the district. The general kind of big ideas of the community engagement plan were determined to still be very real for the work that we need to do in our district. Second, the group acknowledged the need, as I just mentioned, the need to energize the community engagement plan more deeply throughout the organization. And third, the group established a need to refresh the action plans associated with the 9 strategies, which at that point were about 5 years old. So these outcomes have served as our objectives for the work we've done throughout the last year. We're going to talk about how we've accomplished that work. Slide 7. So if you, at your tables, and I'm going to break a cardinal rule of teaching, I'm going to refer you to a handout while I'm still giving you direct instruction. But if you go to the brochure that's at your seats, and just turn to the inside cover, you will see the mission, which starts with the mission of San Bernardino. I won't read the whole thing, was the leading expert in human learning. And then there's a letter from Dr. Marsden, and then our mission, the beliefs that we hold dear to our work, and our key strategic objectives, which start with each student will. These are the primary outcomes that we want for our students. Those are the things that, and then of course the 9 strategies themselves in name, that this group affirmed and said we need to continue with all of those things. So you can look through those a little more deeply when you have the chance. As I mentioned earlier, the planning group affirmed the primary elements of the community engagement plan. And these can be found in the pamphlet you've already seen. I know you're familiar with them, so I won't go over them in detail, but what we fully intend to become as a district are these aspirational goals, and that what we deliberately and intentionally work toward in terms of achieving for our students and our community. So we'll spend the rest of our time this evening on how we're addressing the other 2 outcomes, which are energizing the plan in the field and refreshing the action plans associated with the 9 strategies. So let's talk energy for a little bit. Think of the power of 8,000 team members living out the ideals of the community engagement plan each and every day. If that were the case, there's nothing we would not be able to accomplish, nothing. That mindset is what led us to the goal you see in bold at the bottom of slide 8, that every member of our team knows, owns, and energizes the community engagement plan, and is energized by the way, the community engagement plan. And we recognize this is a very ambitious goal, very, very ambitious goal, and those are the best kind. So how will we get there? We made a conscious decision that in terms of touch points with our team members, our principals and our directors play the key role in message dissemination. Whenever we have meetings, we rely on our site leaders and our directors primarily, who work most directly with the people and our employees in the field to get the word out in terms of what we're about as a school district. So we're using them as our primary conduit for building energy for the community engagement plan into the field. To facilitate this work, Linda Bardier and her terrific team in communications have developed marketing materials to go with each individual strategy of the 9 that we have. And we're asking our middle managers to focus on one strategy each month, and it's the same throughout the district. So last month we worked on high expectations for all. So this month we're working on network of alliances, so that everybody's working and building energy in the same way on the same page. So that our middle managers can focus on a strategy during a staff discussion or brainstorming session. Once the new action plans are completed, and I'll give you an update on those just in a minute, they will also be infused into these discussions so that everyone is moving in the same direction. And by the way, if you looked deeper into this plan, these are our old action plans. They don't represent the new action plans just yet. We'll update this document once the new action plans are done in their entirety.
Yes, Dr. Flores.
Dr. Volkemer, so every school director throughout the whole district is taking the same strategy, correct?
We're focusing on that strategy during a particular month, just to highlight it.
Just to highlight it?
Yep.
And how are they doing it?
If you'll give me just one slide, I'll tell you.
Okay.
If you can.
Okay.
Okay.
And then what are you going to do with it?
I'm almost there. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being ahead of me. To measure the knowledge, by the way, to measure the knowledge level of our team members, just so we're not, mistaking activity for productivity, Mrs. Bardier's office actually created a survey to measure the knowledge level of our team members of our community engagement plan. How familiar are you? Do you own it? Et cetera, et cetera. So we'll be giving that survey. We've collected baseline data to this point. We will be giving that survey over time to see if this strategy is working. We anticipate that it will, but if it's not, we'll try another strategy. So in terms of the other tasks that came out of the original planning efforts, we have been hard at work throughout this last year to move the action planning portion of the work forward. And I'm on slide 9 now, if you would. Thank you. We selected powerful action plan leads for each of the 9 strategies. They assembled broad-based teams to take the first step, which was to take the aspirational goals of the CEP to action planning at what we call the balcony level, and I'll explain what that is in just a minute. But I want to share, if I could have our strategy leads stand up, please. I think they're all here. Ginger, where are you, Ginger? So these are the people that are tasked. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Am I missing one? Who am I missing? And Mary, where's Mary? Oh, there you are. Mary's hiding because she's going to come up and share with you in just a minute. These are the 9 people that are tasked. Each one is responsible for working with a broad-based team of community members, parents, staff members, union representatives to build those action plans out in their entirety. So you can see that this is an all-star team right here. There will be some great work done. They've been tasked with doing that. So if you could give them a round of applause, I'd sure appreciate it. Because they've been very hard at work throughout the year, and they will continue to be very hard work as the years come. So thank you. Just ladies, no gentlemen, just ladies. Thank you very much. We tried a different approach this year to ensure a degree of consistency, or this time around, I shouldn't say this year, in terms of how we're approaching our community engagement plan. To ensure a degree of consistency and to emphasize the interdependence of the work, we assembled all 9 teams at once. So when the first time around with our community engagement plan, we got the teams together, but we sent them off, said, build your own plan, do your own thing. And as a result, you get kind of 9 versions of action plans, and you don't quite get the coherence and consistency that you would like to have. So we assembled all 9 teams at once for a series of 3 meetings. The teams were, again, broad-based with all of our stakeholder groups, and their task was to take the work from what we call the airplane level, which is the grand view, the big ideas, to the balcony level. So the grand view or the big idea at the airplane level would be, kids, we want our students to know about the world of work. Okay, that's a big idea that we want them to have. That's an airplane view. Taking it to the balcony level is our students will have internship and pre-apprentice types of experiences before they leave high school. Okay, that takes it to a balcony level. Taking it to a field level, which I'll talk about in a minute, is saying at Arroyo Valley High School, students will partner with XYZ agency to have internships in these particular industry sector types of jobs so that we get real specific about that work. And so that's what they'll be doing during this next year in terms of taking the big ideas from the balcony level to the field level. That takes our aspiration right down into the nitty-gritty. Given the connectedness of the plans, we also built in time and process throughout our 3 meetings for some cross-pollination. So the teams not only worked on their own plan, but they also looked at other plans as they went through so that they could develop points of connectedness. So they could say, well, you know, what you're doing in resource allocation really has a lot to do with what we're doing in the network of alliances. Or you can't really separate applied learning from college and career. So they got to work together so that the 9 plans don't exist in silos, but they exist as part of a comprehensive plan. That was a very effective strategy in terms of getting lots of feedback and lots of thought into the work. We then held a parent forum with well over 100 parents participating. We had parents from all of our advisory groups. We had parents from every school in the district. And they came in and looked at the plans that these teams had drafted so far. And they were amazing. They were absolutely amazing. They were engaged, energized. They gave us great feedback and input in terms of what the parent perspective is on our community engagement work. And we used a model, experience model framework. So we brought a model to them, so we didn't have to create it from scratch. They got to experience that model and say, this is what we like, this is how we think we can improve it. And we've built that input into the refined model or the revised model to just have a better plan overall. We then had a kind of a unique experience and opportunity to share that. We shared the plan draft with the Making Hope Happen Foundation Advisory Board, and you know that our advisory board is made up of a lot of key leaders, community leaders in the city, and outside the city for that matter. And they were able to take a look at the plan and share their perspective on what they thought was positive, what they thought might be lacking, and also where they thought they could partner in terms of our community engagement plan. And that was very powerful. And all that information has been shared with our strategy leads. And as a last step, we're looking forward to sharing the draft with our superintendent student advisory group in November to hear their voice on the plan and get their fingertips on the plan. So by the time this really starts to take fold and moves into action, everybody will have had their fingertips on it. We believe that that's been very important to ownership and the quality, actually the overall quality of the plan. So we thought having all 9 strategy teams share where they're at this evening might be a little much, and we would probably have to order out for breakfast. So we decided to highlight one strategy, and so at this time, again, all the action plan teams went through the same process. So the coaching and mentoring strategy that you'll hear about tonight is representative of the work overall. But it's my pleasure, come on up, you guys. My pleasure to introduce Mary Pierce, who's our Director of Employee Development, and members of the team that she has been working with and will work with to share a bit. So, Mary?
I asked them to walk all together because it seemed like a long way for each individual to have the focus on them. So I asked them to come up with me together. So good evening, Madam President, Madam Vice President, board members, Dr. Marsden, board and cabinet members. As the Director of Employee Development, it is my honor to speak with you this evening about the Community Engagement Plan. As the lead for Strategy 3, the Coaching and Mentoring Committee, I have had the wonderful opportunity to engage with many parents, community members whom I had not had the opportunity to meet before, and employees to re-energize our work to strengthen human capacity through systems of coaching and mentoring. As Dr. Atul Gawande, noted surgeon and author of the book Better, states, coaching done well may be the most effective intervention designed for human performance. And legendary coach John Wooden, who I always like to quote, said, while I made my living as a coach, I have lived my life to be a mentor and to be mentored constantly. He said, everything in the world has been passed down. Every piece of knowledge is something that has been shared by someone else. If you understand it as I do, mentoring becomes your true legacy. It is the greatest inheritance you can give to others. It is why you get up every day to teach and be taught. To me, there's nothing more exciting than working together to build and improve our systems to coach and mentor throughout the district. Tonight, I've invited several members of the Coaching and Mentoring Committee to say a few words about their excitement about this strategy and their participation in re-energizing our community engagement plan. First, I would like to recognize the parents who gave their valuable time and input into the community engagement plan this past year, even though they're not present. Primero, quiero agradecer a las madres quienes dieron su tiempo y sus ideas al plan para la participación de la comunidad este año, aunque no están presentes. Thanks to, gracias a, Aira Alvarez, Maria Cruz, Carmen Gonzalez, Tina Gonzalez, Rosa Lopez, Norma Mercado, Melissa Termier. And I would especially like to thank Mrs. Rachel Brandy, also a parent on the committee. She was scheduled to attend this evening, but she couldn't stay late. I did let her know today we were scheduled for about 8 o'clock, and that was a little too late for her. But she did ask me to share her thoughts with you, so I did write down what she said. Mrs. Rachel Brandy is the parent of a 6th grade special needs son at North Park Elementary School, and 2 daughters who recently graduated from Cajon High School, one in 2017 and one in 2018. She volunteers every day in her son's classroom at North Park Elementary School. She participated in the parent forum and gave input into the community engagement plan strategy 3 specifically. And she's going to continue to represent parents as our committee moves forward this year to work on the action steps. She asked me to tell you the following. She said, I am on board for this. Mentoring is essential for young minds. Mentoring builds self-esteem, and helping students when they are young is important. When they have someone around to help them, it means everything. I am looking forward to continuing to participate in the committee. And I personally would like to thank Mrs. Brandy for her commitment. At this time, I'd like to welcome some of the other committee members. Mrs. Marcia Moyer, Mrs. Yvonne Alcantara, and Mrs. Keisha Handy. Each of them would like to say a few words about their participation in this part of the community engagement plan. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good evening. It's a privilege to be here and talk to you all and what we were doing. I'm a third grade teacher. My name is Marcia Moyer. I'm at Hillside Elementary School. I'm also an SBTA site rep. And I've been asked to share a little bit about what my feelings are about the coaching and mentoring. I have been a master teacher in the Excellence in Teaching program. I've been a mentor to new teachers on my site, and I have also had numerous student teachers in my classroom. So I understand the value and how that makes everyone more competent, not only the mentorees, but me as a mentor, because as I'm teaching and I'm directing, I am also learning. Things that are going on, and just to get an idea how this concept, this mindset is filtering down to the school level. At our site at Hillside, we have team-level meetings, and we mentor each other. We do a lot of collaboration, and that just makes us all better. And the other things that are going on there, as an example, our rec aides are now getting mentored by our VP, and they are now going to start attending PD, which didn't happen at our site before. And also, many years ago, we started a Reading Buddies program, and it was basically third graders and first grade teams going together. And that has developed into so much more than just third graders and first graders. We have fourth grades meeting with kinders. My third grade is now meeting with sixth graders. And so it's giving all children an opportunity to be mentored and to be helped in giving leadership roles in a very informal setting and learning how to take care of each other and how to help each other and grow to be good citizens and good scholars. And I thank you for this opportunity, and I am very excited about this strategy in our plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Yvonne Alcantara. I am currently a peer assistance and review consulting teacher in the Employee Development Department. I also served the district as a math Common Core demonstration teacher at Curtis Middle School. My current position consists of providing confidential support to build upon teachers' skills and knowledge of their teaching practices. Teachers requesting assistance are normally transitioning from one grade to a level, or just simply want to improve their skills on any of the California California standards for the teaching profession. As a new coach to the department, I also received onboarding coaching and mentoring that has contributed greatly to my professional and personal growth this past school year. In this position, my skills and knowledge as a coach continue to grow with the great support and meaningful feedback of my PAR team. Having the opportunity to take part in the review of the community engagement plan has provided me with a greater sense of purpose and a deeper understanding of how strategic and intentional I have to be with the work that I do with my teachers. Ultimately, I am reminded of the direct impact my role has on the success of our district. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing.
Good evening. My name is Keisha Handy. I'm the principal at Cole Elementary, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of this group. I'm part of the AXA, Clear Administrative Credential Program, that is offered through Mary's office, the Employee Development Department. I remember my first day on the job as a principal. I've never felt alone. I started in November of 2016. And from that first day, I had 2 weeks of the onboarding, and I got a chance to sit with Suda all day long and shadow her. Another day, I got to sit with Dr. Lundy. So having an opportunity to shadow excellent principals before you actually go on the job was very helpful for that. So that onboarding is tremendously helpful. In addition to meeting directors face-to-face, because you talk to people on the phone, but it's nice to be able to see directors face-to-face and knowing about how I will make interactions with them and how I'll communicate with them and build that rapport before I give them a call and ask for some help. In addition to, this is year 2 of my AXA credentialing program, so I'm about to clear my credential, but I have Tommy Archuleta, who is the Hillside principal, and as you know, she has the highest performing school at Hillside. We have kind of a little joke going on. I said, you have 2 more years to be number 1, and then after that, Cole has taken over. So we have this civil rivalry, but it's just love. She was also my BITSA mentor. So when I was a brand new teacher, she mentored me. She was in my classroom. She's very funny, easy to talk to. I can text her on a Sunday. She'll get right back to me. I'll email her. I'm like, what are you up at midnight? Stop, go to sleep. So just having someone that I can talk to and knowing that I'm not alone in this work has been extremely helpful. And as we think about the community engagement plan for this strategy of mentoring and coaching, I have so many coaches in this room. Mary has coached me. I have Barbara. When I was in teacher, she had me do presentations for her and just supported me. I went to Curtis Middle School and visited back by Condova's. All of my teachers went there. I've been to Tasha's school. She sat down with me. So although Tommy is my coach, I have so many coaches. Dr. Mitchell has called me, Dr. Hill. I mean, you on the panel, Dr. Wiseman, I saw him somewhere. So I'm just so fortunate to be a part of this district and knowing that, yes, I have a coach, but I have many, many leaders that I can run to and call whenever I need it, and they call me right away. I'm just so fortunate with that. And just to pay it forward at Cole Elementary, we have had tremendous success, and it's building this mindset of being a leader. So we need future leaders of tomorrow, and so we're using the 7 habits of highly effective people. We visited schools that are our lighthouse schools last year. We actually have 7 leadership groups that we are starting using that program. And I'm just so proud to know that our teachers want to be mentors to our students and facilitate this idea, this collegial collaboration, and how much we need one another. So that is what we want to leave a legacy to our kids, that you are a leader, and you're a leader because we're doing this together.
Great, thank you.
So I just want to, again, thank all of you and also the parents who have been part of this committee and continue to work with us. Quiero agradecer otra vez a las madres que nos han ayudado, que nos van a seguir ayudando con este trabajo. And could we recognize them with a round of applause for their hard work? I mean, they're doing amazing work at their schools and throughout the district. And I just want to thank all of you for your support as we move forward in envisioning even greater things and really continuing to build out these structures. And I want to thank Dr. Volkemer for the opportunity to be able to lead something that's so powerful. So I thank you also, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary and team and board. I'm confident that you would hear similar accounts from members of any of the 9 strategy teams. Thanks in large part, if not complete part, to these 9 great leaders that are leading that work and the people that are helping them do it. So where do we go from here? Thank you for being patient, Dr. Flores. I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to try to answer your question now. We're going to continue to meet, have our directors and our principals meet monthly with their staffs and highlight an individual strategy each month. So as I mentioned, last month was High Expectations. This month will be Network of Alliances. Next month is College and Career. It's all scheduled out. And the design is that they would take the materials that were created by Mrs. Bardier's office as a starting point, have a discussion of what's meaningful about this particular strategy in relation to what we're doing at XYZ school or in the IT department or transportation or whatever it is, just to build a sense of ownership and buy-in from all members of our team. And what we're doing is we're building a kind of an in-house an idea warehouse. We're using Padlet application technology, where after their monthly discussion and brainstorming session with their staff, their only responsibility is to take their key learning, their best idea, their best practice, and put it into this Padlet, which is kind of like a Google Doc. It's a running document that continues to build on itself, so that all of our best practice throughout the district will be there for everybody to reference, so that if they're at any time they want to, and we're just getting started with this, so it's still pretty fledgling, but at any time in the future when someone says, you know, I really need some good ideas about High Expectations, I don't know that we're quite there yet, they can go to the Padlet technology and look at all of the entries from all of the schools and all of the departments and say, oh, wow, that's a great idea. That's really applicable to my school and my situation now. And I'll call that principal and see kind of how they did it. So we really believe that's going to be a powerful resource for them in terms of building on the work year after year after year after year. They can all benefit from each other's work. Our strategies leads, as I mentioned, have already started to build their broad-based action teams to go from the balcony level to the field level, and we're all about that work right now. And they've committed to meeting monthly to talk about the alignment and the integration of the work. We're starting to have discussions about is the strategy high expectations an actual strategy, or is it an approach to all the rest of the strategies? Does high expectations exist in and of itself, or is it just what we should be doing in all the other strategies? Same with success and accountability. Is success and accountability a strategy, or is it a byproduct of the work that's being done in the other strategies? So we're starting to have those kinds of discussions in terms of how we really maximize the integration and the alignment of the strategies. So we're very, very excited about where we're going, and we're looking forward to providing updates to the board. And so my last comment is, by harnessing the collective wisdom of our school community, which we think we've done very, very well, we believe that we're poised to do great things for our community engagement plan. We believe that by promoting high levels of engagement and a deliberate approach to getting the work done, we will see accelerated growth in the achievement of our students over time. Thank you for your time, and we're available to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, great.
And then I am going to ask at the end for one moment of personal privilege, but I'll get to that.
Okay, I see Mr. Gallo, but I believe Dr. Flores also has a question.
Yes, thanks, Harold. And thanks, team, for coming up and sharing one of the strategies. It's great to see how it's comprehensive and inclusive, too. Harold, you mentioned something about the balcony level. I don't know what you called the lower level, the orchestra pit or something.
Field level.
What was it?
Field level.
Got it. And you gave an example of like internships, both out in industry, and I'm just assuming that also meant our own district departments. Have we initiated anything on that yet?
Absolutely. And again, that was just a very small example of how you would move from airplane to balcony to field. There could be 100 different options.
Yeah, I know it was just an example, but that to me was, again, looking at a multiplicity of these strategies that really impact economic viability and let alone career pathways and stuff. And I think us being the demonstrator of our commitment to showcase that we're taking it seriously with internships is a way to engage, our outside businesses and our community to support that as well if we're doing it the same way. So I just question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that input.
Okay, Dr. Flores.
Thank you, Harold. This is really comprehensive. And I like the way it's laid out. It's systematic. We're targeting the different areas, and then also going through to see if it's still pertinent, in terms of where we want to go the next 5 years and so forth. And I actually picked out number 4, high expectations for all, because I've spent the bulk of my career researching how teachers shift their deficit ideology and their mindsets and their beliefs, because it doesn't matter what pedagogy we share with them, but the beliefs really drive the practice. So, and setting those high expectations. And once you shift that belief, then how do you go through, implementing the practice? That's the key. That's the key in terms of teaching, learning. How do we provide the tools for our teachers to shift? And there's bodies of research related to how we transform deficit ideology. And I think that, it isn't, to me, a strategy. It's a belief system. And it's a ideology in terms of where we want to go, about culture, about language, about socioeconomic status, about ethnicity, about poverty, et cetera. And so, I commend us for, naming these and so forth, and moving towards actually actualizing them, because we're a big district. We have 76 schools, And I mean, in one high school at Arroyo, we have 2,600 kids. It's huge. So, and how many employees, how many teachers? 4,000?
3,000.
3,000. And then teachers' aides and staff and classified. I mean, we're like a big, I don't want to say corporation, but we're a huge organization. And, you know, I'm kind of, how do you say, I think that's a really good strategy to every month pick a strategy and really dig deep and say, what is it, and so forth. Because we need to communicate. We need to really communicate and build shared understandings, shared knowledge, name, you know, what is it that we don't get? Does it really work? You know, how are we going to do it? What can we do? Because then you'll have lists of stuff that we can do, but what is it that we can do? So that, I mean, it's, you know, and it's going to take us a while, but I think when we dig deep and start really communicating and looking at stuff, for example, you know, Mrs. Rogers and Mr. Tillman and I are always, and the rest of the board are always saying, well, you know, that's not good enough, you know, for academic achievement. I mean, our kids still don't know math. Our kids still don't know, you know, how to write, you know, at a quality level. So we really have to dig down deep and begin to, but however, we do have teachers that are doing this.
Oh, yeah.
And I like the idea that, are we going to put it on Google Docs, or maybe there's something else too, where we can share all that knowledge of where it is happening, because it's for our kids. It's important. And I'm just, right now I'm talking about academics, but the mental health and emotional is also, and well-being. And I think our middle school and high school kids have been neglected. We've always focused on the elementary. I'm not saying we neglect them by choice. I'm just saying we're, you know, focused on other things. But what is it that we're going to do at all levels? So, and what can we do that we need to do? But I appreciate all this and all the good work that we're going to do. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Flores.
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Hill,
Flores.
you had a question as well?
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Volkmer, I just want to say thank you so much for the great presentation. But early on, one of the things I wrote to question at the end, it's also beliefs. And I said, why do I feel this is the weak link? And I felt that during the presentation that was made, even though good things were happening, I just didn't feel the belief system was really in place. And I just want to thank Mary Pierce and her team, because I really had goosebumps when you came up. And I said, there's the belief, that's what I was looking for. And I'm just hoping we can instill that throughout the district, not only with our staff, but also with our parents and with our students, because that, to me, that's the guiding factor. The beliefs have to be there, and it came out loud and clear, Ms. Pierce, with your team, and I'm sure it's there with others. But I just want to thank you for validating what I was feeling concerned about at the very beginning. So I can go home feeling good now, knowing that we're on the right path. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Okay, any further board member comments? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and move along. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Mrs. Medina, if I may,
Yes.
I want to introduce you to someone.
Yes.
So if I could have Nicole Post stand up just for a second. Nicole is the new administrative assistant in the Deputy Superintendent's office. She has joined our team officially since this last Monday. So I want to say welcome to Nicole, but I really have a real motive for doing that. This is actually Sylvia Garcia Flores' last board meeting and last 2 weeks in the district. She will be retiring next Friday. after 39 years
Wow.
of faithful and excellent service to our school district. I've had the distinct pleasure and privilege of working with Sylvia for over 20 years, and it has been a joy every step of the way. I don't know for her, but for me it has been. And so anyway, I just thank you for recognizing her because she's well-deserving. Thank you.
I don't know how we hired somebody at age 13, but we'll have to look into that.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations. Good job, Sylvia. You are a model of what employees are in this district, so thank you so much.
And thank you so
Your
much for
service.
your service. Enjoy your retirement. Okay, great, thank you. Let's go ahead and go to 9.0, Administrative Report. 9.1, Unaudited Actuals Financial Report, Fiscal Year 2017-18.
Thank you.
Dr. Marsden?
Thank you, Madam President.
And just a note, Board, we will be voting on this on page 12.
Thank you, yes. And so Ms. Christakos and her team have prepared our unaudited actuals financial report, so you'll get a sense of the district's lay of the land at this point in the juncture of our budget. So you've heard a lot about the budget over the last while, and this is another picture through our unaudited actuals. So, Ms. Christakos.
Good evening, Board. We're pleased to present you with the unaudited actuals for 2017-18, and it's the annual reconciliation of all of our revenues and expenditures for 2017-18. We also have information in here. Many of the board members asked for comparisons against adopted budget, estimated, and unaudited actuals. We'll go over that with you, and then we'll look at unassigned balances and carryover. So slide number 3.
Can I just make a comment? So then that way, after every 2 sheets, or 3 sheets, better yet, 3 sheets, if we have any comments, so that way we can pause in between.
Sure.
Is that okay for the board? Okay, great, thank you.
So slide number 3 actually is just the summary of everything. You'll recall in June, the board approved a $16.4 million in one-time expenditures. We thought we were receiving $16 million in one-time dollars, but once the governor signed and approved the budget, the one-time dollars were less than expected, but our LCFF was increased by $3.9 million. Our one-time discretionary was reduced by $7.5 million, leaving $3.6 million short of the $16.4 you approved in June. With this report, we have $5.1 million more. Once we make up for the $3.6 million, there's $1.5 that's undesignated ending balance. If you move to slide number 4 and 5, and I'd like to go back and forth between these 2 slides. Slide number 4 shows all of our revenues for the total general fund. You can see $669.6 million. Most of that is our LCFF sources. That's generated through average daily attendance and our unduplicated count. If you move to the next slide, you see that we spent $668.4 million. Some of it was carryover from the prior year, but we're spending most of the dollars we're receiving. Do we want to take a break there? Go through it? Okay. Slide number 6 is just a look at where have we been. You can see in the columns the major categories of expenditures. The dark blue on the bottom is our certificated salaries, then our classified salaries. The green is employee benefits. So those 3 areas comprise most of our budget. We then have books and supplies, services and other operating expenses, and capital outlay. And what this chart shows is our revenue since 12/13. And then you can see the total expenditures. So the revenue line is the red line that goes across the page, and the bar charts show our major areas and categories. So what you see here is in 2017-18, our revenues were $210 million higher than they were in 12/13, and our expenditures $208 million more in our general fund.
Okay, and then you can go to the next graph, and on page 8, then we can go ahead, right before page 8, we'll ask questions.
Okay.
Right before page 8, after page 7, then if you have any questions. Yes.
Slide number 7, you've seen many times, STRS and PERS. And if you'll recall, when LCFF was adopted, the governor and the promise was that we would be returned to the purchasing power of 2007, 2008, as we went into the Great Recession. But we also have we've taken on expenditures that have been placed on all of the local education agencies related to the increase in rates for STRS and PERS. And what this chart illustrates is if you look at 13-14 through 17-18, our district expense has increased by $19.7 million just in the rate increase. We're projected another $23.4 million through 2023-24, and a total projected impact to San Bernardino City Unified School District is over $43 million in increased costs.
Okay, great. Any board questions so far? Okay, you can move forward. And then at page, yes, go ahead, Dr. Flores.
It's a short one, but we'll come back to it. So back on page 3, 1.5 million was not designated. In other words, that's what we as a board can designate.
Yes, we have
Additional.
recommendations for you
Recommendations,
based on requests that we've received, and
Okay.
that's later in the presentation.
Okay, and Madam President, once we get to the end, then I
Yes.
would like to make some requests.
Okay.
Of my board members. Okay.
Slide number 8 is just a picture of where we started the year last June 2017. This is our 2017-18 budget, where we were with our estimated and our unaudited actuals. This is the unrestricted general fund only. Now, you do see some deficit spending. That is mostly related to carryover from the prior year. And then as you work through the chart, you see the 2017-18 unaudited on the far right. You see that reconciliation with the 1.5 million undesignated and we do have recommendations.
Mr. Stockman, when you say deficit spending, what line are you talking about?
So line 4.
But that didn't happen at all.
Yeah, that's our unaudited. That's for the unrestricted. So you probably saw the combined general fund, which is on the next page. So if you go to the next page, slide number 9, this is our total general fund, where we had an excess on line 4 of 1.2 million. Do you see that?
Yeah, but I guess even for the 17-18, and I'll talk about it later, but even for 17-18, the okay, go ahead. All
Okay. We can move to slide 9. Are we on slide 9? On slide 9, so you see our beginning fund balance from when we adopted the budget back in June and to where we ended the budget. So there was the beginning balance has increased. We have revenue changes. And so as you'll recall, we provide you with a budget in June. We do things occur constantly. We get grants, different things happen. And as we go through the close of the books, there's carryover, there's unearned revenue, there's a number of things that occur. And we update the board at first interim and second interim, and then we move into budget again and we start the cycle over. So this is just a snapshot of what happened when from the time the board adopted the budget a year ago, June, to where we've closed out the books over the summer. And again, you see that unappropriated ending balance of 1.5 million. On the next slide is the components of the ending fund balance. So you see the total ending fund balance of $105.9 million on line 1. You see some of the required reserves we have for revolving cash, prepaid expense, and then we have the 2%. Because of the size of our district, we have to set aside 2%. Smaller districts set aside 3%. That represents about 1 week of payroll. That's the amount that's required to be set aside. We have reserved for restricted ending balances, which we'll go over with you in just a moment, of $44.4 million. We have some assigned balances the board has set aside for textbooks and TSSP over the next 2 years. We have the $3.6 million that we were short for filling that $16.4 million one-time expenditures. And again, they're one-time. And then the balance after reserves, we set money aside for deficit spending in the multi-year projection, leaving us with the $1.5 million. On slide number 11 is the list. So on 10, you see the line 6, there's $44.4 million in restricted ending balances. On slide 11, this is what makes up that $44 million. And some of the large ones, we have the California Clean Energy Jobs Act. That's specifically for energy savings, and some of the work that Mr. Aceto is doing and Mr. Medford is installing LED lights and different things that we're expected to save the general fund about $660,000 annually. We have our instructional materials that are set aside for textbooks, mental health, the learning communities, year 2 of a 3-year grant, college readiness. We have our restricted maintenance account. And then the second to the last line is our RDA and IVDA, and that's for the remodel of the Board of Education, our Welcoming Center, and Police Department. So that money is set aside for facilities. And that's the total restricted ending balance.
Are there any questions so far on these?
I think that's the end, right?
No, not yet. We're still, but so far, do we have any other questions?
And then just, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'll wait till you finish. I have a question after it's over.
Okay, go ahead. Continue.
Slide 12 is just a quick reminder. This is the $16.4 million that you approved in June of one-time spending. Just a reminder there in case you needed to reference it. On slide 13, these are the additional requests for the $1.5 million. I'd like to go through these. The first one is innovation grants. There was one of the schools that held their conference that they were paying for in July, and so that's why it shows as carryover, because it was spent in July. The linked learning was one time over 3 years, and that was year 2, and this is year 2, so we'd like to carry those dollars over. We have requesting $250,000 for school sites for study trips. We have our in-house warranty program and our E-rate program, and that's our request of the $1.5 million. We did have more requests, and we worked together to get this list down to the $1.5 million. And again, on slide 14 is just a summary of what we looked at earlier in the presentation. And slide 15 is just where we are in the process. Again, we're giving you the annual receipts for last year. We'll have our first interim report for 18-19, and in January, the auditors will come out and they will have done their review on our 17-18 school year. And I know you have questions. I don't want to forget to thank Mr. Cunningham and Ms. King for all their work and their staff's work in preparing the unaudited actuals and closing the book. It's a lot of work as you start the new year, trying to close out the previous year and starting the new year, and I wanted to be sure to thank them.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, Mr. Tillman?
Yeah, so I guess I don't really understand the $20 million set aside for the deficit spending. Did we have an amount set aside in 2017, 2018 for deficit spending?
Yes.
And how much of that did we use?
We actually, what we're setting it.
I said, I don't understand this line item that says reserve for deficit spending. And then I asked, did we, this
It's
is
in the
big,
book.
in the big book.
Mm-hmm.
It's in his
Page
booklet.
3.
And
So-
then, if we did, what was the amount? Because I don't understand that. Did we have an amount?
So in 16-17, we set 23 million aside. Do you see that?
And
On
how-
the first column.
And how much of that did we use?
Our new set aside is 20.9 million, so I'd have to give a reconciliation because we didn't spend all the dollars. We spent some carryover, different things, so I'd have to look at that. But what that reserve set aside is for when you look at line 3, and we have to present our multi-year projection to the county, which goes to the state, we have to show that we're going to end our 3 years with those required reserves.
So if we realize more money, will you tell us we can spend it?
We can then reduce that set aside, and we will update it at our first interim report.
But I'm trying to get to a practical part. Would it ever get to a point that you would say, okay, so now there's undesignated money that the board can spend?
We would.
So, and maybe I'm missing something, but it looks like there's a disconnect to me between and I apologize, Ms. Christak, because I didn't have this until the
That's
day
okay.
I was out of town. But it's a disconnect between the unaudited actuals and then the multi-year projections, unless they've been updated somewhere. Because if you look at I'm asking, when you look at the 2018-2019 budget, it says that you have a beginning balance of 96 million, right? But we know now it's 105 million.
Yeah, and we're spending 5.1 million. We're setting up budgets for the 5.1 million more.
No, my question is, though, if the original budget for 2018-2019 was based on a beginning fund balance of $96 million, we know now that it's $105 million,
Correct,
right?
correct.
That's not reflected anywhere in this new projected 2018-2019 budget, right?
That's correct, because this was as of adopted budget. So in your unaudited actuals, we do not update the multi-year until first interim.
Right, I understand that, but that money's available now.
Well, if you go back to slide number 14, we have 3.6 million will cover what we were short for the 16.4 million, and then we have a request for the 1.5.
But all those numbers were in here already before you realized this new number. That was that's all part of the original 2018-2019 budget.
If you look on line F on page 3, we had one-time mandates for board priorities of 16.1 million. We hadn't put them in the budget yet. I can check with staff on that.
Yeah, because it's the same thing for this. If
You can put your because we want to hear everything you're saying. And,
how about that? Is that better now? On page 4 in the book, where you have the excess deficit, and you have it listed as 12.6 million, but it actually was 7 million. Is that reflected in the new 2018-2019 budget?
So these items that are put in the book are for your reference. We don't, with your unaudited actuals, we do not update the multi-year.
Right.
Because it's related to last year's expenditures. When we bring you the first interim, all of that will be updated, everything. Our multi-year projection will be updated.
And here's my fear, though, Mr. Kostakis. From a practical perspective, I just get the feeling that it's always going to turn out there's nothing left. Because from a practical perspective, this is real money. This is not pretend money. This is real money. So if on paper you have a balanced budget based on lower numbers in terms of what you projected the beginning balance to be, if I can already see that the actual number is higher than that, then that means that should be money that I should be able to spend, right?
So, but we didn't receive all the money. If you'll recall, the one-time dollars were 16.1 million that we thought we were going to get, and we only got 8.5. So
I understand that.
So that's there. We have to backfill it with some of that carryover to fund the list that the board approved in June.
Well, I guess my fear, and it goes back to this number where it says $20 million for
Deficit spending.
deficit spending. At the beginning of the budget process for the previous year, you guys projected we were going to deficit spend by what amount? And it ended up being $1 million.
So when we did the multi-year projection, as we're building in all those increased costs that we shared with you, particularly PERS and STIRS, we actually had to, in the years out, incorporate $11 million in cuts. And so that money, we have to show the county that we can afford these things on the years out. Carryover is one time. And so as we realize that as we go along, can be spent on one-time things. And I understand and I hear your concern.
Right.
You don't want money just put away. But again, I'd just like to remind the board that our required reserve is very small.
Right. And just for clarification, you made a statement that carryover is one time. We don't know that for sure.
I'm sorry.
We do not know for sure that all of this money that carried over is just one-time money. There was a time when we had carryover money, we had it designated by how much of it staff would go through and say, we think this much is
one
time and this much is ongoing. But just because it's carryover doesn't necessarily mean that it's one-time money. And I'm only bringing it up because I know Dr. Flores says she wanted 2 counselors. To me, it should be an easy thing because the kind of money that we're talking about, where we realize that based on the unaudited actuals, we did see some less expenditures than were projected in the original budget and in the estimates, and more revenue than what was projected. And I mean, we even gave you the line item for the deficit spending, and that's real money. So to hire a couple counselors, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's unreasonable. And I really do think in the end, and I love the fact that we're conservative. I love the fact that we have, I don't know, what's this, like 16, 17% of our budget in the ending balance. That's great, but because it's a whole lot better than some other districts' budgets I've looked at recently where they, have maybe 4 or 5% of their ending balance is of the total budget, which to me would be scary, and for a small district. So I'm not knocking us for being fiscally prudent, but I do think there has to be some ways to loosen up the purse strings a little bit for things that the board wants from time to time.
I just have a quick comment. So one thing that's become more challenging again is the PERS and STIRS as we move forward. So you may have, as you say, we end the year and we might say this could have been ongoing, but then the costs go up. So it becomes one time for that year because those costs keep rising beyond what step and column and health and welfare that we've always covered. So that's a challenge that districts face in that regard. And then statewide, the unified school district ending fund balances are on average are 16.6%. If you look just at our unrestricted general fund, and that's how they calculate it, we're a little over 9%. So you have seen other districts that are barely squeaking by on their required 3%, and that's not a place that we want to be in. So I hear what you're saying.
And just last, so what were the $11.5 million in budgeted reduction that we made?
I can bring you an update at the interim. So we looked.
On page 3, it says we have incorporated $11.5 million in budgeted reduction during the projection period, only because those must have been some either positions that were eliminated or.
I can bring that to you. I can bring that back to you because that was in June. So I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Dr. Flores?
Yes, thank you. I share the same concern that Mr. Tillman just posed, and I also see your point of view as well, Ms. Christakos, because we're not sure of what's going to happen, I mean, I was taught to save for a rainy day as well, and I also see Mr. Tillman's perspective. We could probably use some of that money for other things, and maybe it's a larger amount. I don't know how you calculated it, but you have your reasons for calculating, for reserving that much in case, we need it for certain aspects. But I also see a pattern that we have large carryovers every single year. And that's money that's not being spent on our students. So anyway, I can see both perspectives as well. I would like to refer everybody to page 12 in the handout. And it says LCAP, Program Descriptions, Activities, and Initiatives. Are these all the LCAP programs?
No, these aren't all of the programs I'm looking. No, they're not. These are the ones that we requested, the work or requirements or the request for carryover and additional one-time dollars went through Dr. Mitchell's office, and they were vetted through all of that on where we were going to allocate these.
So this is not the LCAP that we passed?
It's part of it.
Because I don't see Latino achievement on here, and I don't see English language learners.
They're in the annual budget, so they get their annual allocation. These were additional one-time dollars.
These were the additional ones?
But they
Okay.
still got their annual allocation at budget adoption.
That we had, so they got the same amount?
Yes.
And so they did not get extra here?
And,
These are the programs that got extra?
These would be the one-time expenditures, and Dr. Mitchell can speak to it, but he's probably doing a lot of this for many different programs. On slide 12.
And maybe just a reminder to Dr. Flores and board, we had gone through the process of the board and community weighing in on what are some additional things they wanted to do on top of the existing LCAP work, the things you mentioned before that aren't in here. And we didn't think we'd be able to fund them all, if you recall.
Right.
And then we got to the place where we actually received the monies and it worked that we could fund them all. And so that's what you see here. We barely basically were able to fund those items, but we did.
Right.
Use the board. Just a reminder of what.
I just
what things
wanted to
are-
clarify.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, but I wanted to help you.
Where it
help you
was,
with that,
yeah. And I want to share with the board that there was and cabinet, that there is a bill passed and signed by the governor, AB 2735, for English language learners, specifically targeting middle and high school students who are failing dismally. And so it's an entire bill. I don't know if you have looked at it, or I think I sent it to you guys, but the governor passed it. I don't know what the funding will be, or if we have to do it, from LCFF or whatever, but we are going to have to step up to the plate in terms of providing these services. And I'm glad that you brought up, Dr. Volkemer, where we're going to go in terms of high expectations and what we're going to do. And what that bill addresses is that our middle school and high school kids do not have access to rigorous curriculum because they're stuck in EL low-level classes, and never get to move up to the point where they have access to that curriculum, rigorous curriculum. So I just wanted to clarify that for the board and so forth, yeah. Thank you.
Ms. Rogers?
Yeah, I just had a question, because I know when we look at the budget, each time we usually come back to the reserve and, looking at the money that we're not spending that we have there. And Janie, I heard you, because our reserve requirement is 3%?
It's a 2% because we're larger. Many districts are
Right.
3.
And so we've deemed that that's the safe, we will stay within line of this. But then you mentioned like 9%.
Yes.
I heard you say something, is that the combination of the two?
Yeah, so if you take your unrestricted general fund reserves, so even the things that we're saying we're setting aside for textbooks and TSSP, that would all count. And it's a percentage of the total general fund expenditures and transfers. So we have a transfer to preschool.
So does that, the 9% that you quoted, does that fluctuate? Is it normally at 9, 9.4, whatever that is? And the reason why I'm asking that is maybe we can come to an agreement where we say these are, between these two numbers, and our efforts to be conservative, this is the number. So then going forward, when we know we've either exceeded that percentage, then maybe we can reevaluate if there were other things that we want to do. Because each time we do talk about it, but I don't know if I'm trying to listen for the magic percentage. Is it the percentage that just happens each year on top of the 2%? And board, that just might be something, if we can even land on that agreement and say between the two percentages, because otherwise we'll discuss it, but then we still don't know, do we really, if there's other things that we want to do, if we say the magic number is 9% or 10% between the two, or if it goes over a certain amount, then maybe we can, land on that number, which is comfortable to, what you're letting us know that we need to, look ahead and know, and not just outspend where we are and then get there and say, oh my goodness, I wasn't on the board when we had to lay off people, but all these things are factors that we don't want to happen. But if we can average it out and see, when we end up here, generally we would still be okay. Maybe something that we can consider, Mr. Tillman, as well, because we talk about that. So,
All right.
that's my suggestion.
Many districts will adopt a policy that's above the very minimum required, and so that's part of some of the things that they will do. I've seen districts do a 5%. I've seen them do different things and set money aside. So part of our calculation includes money we've set aside for textbooks and different things like that. So
Okay.
So again, board, because we each time that we get to this, we see it, and then we don't know what to do, but it seems like we would want to do something, like just come up with whatever that percentage, whatever it may look like, so that we know we're all comfortable saying when we're at this percentage between the reserve and the deficit spending number, whatnot, then we know that's where we land.
But what you just said and what Ms. Christakis just said were two different things, because you were talking about the average for the ending balance. Ms. Christakis was hedging her bet, and she was saying, she was doing a redirect, I think. She was saying you can increase the 2% mandatory reserve to 5%, which to me, in my mind, means instead of having the 9% ending balance, you'd have a 12 and 13% ending balance. And that's just more money you're not spending.
And
So I wouldn't go along
I
with
wasn't
that.
saying to increase it to have more.
Yeah, but that's what
I'm saying.
I'm just saying
But I'm
that's
saying
an option.
increase it to whatever would be comfortable. If 13 was it, which no, but whatever it is, because right now it was like between the two, I think I heard 9 point something. So, whatever, if we can, on everybody's language and lingo, whatever it is, say that this is what we've seen in these years, over these years, these averages, just like I know it's not as simple as a checkbook, but that's just how I'm thinking. We know that we have this here, and then now we can think about the other things versus we come up with an initiative and we say it's only this much, because I don't want to go down the road that we make a decision to do something, because you brought up some things and maybe we can do those things, but then what about the next time? What about the next time?
And let me be fair, those are great questions, Mr. Rogers. Let me be real fair about why I bring it up now. The only time you know for sure how much money you have is when they close out the books and they give you unaudited actuals. And that's what we got tonight. So from my perspective, Ms. Christakis and all her great team, they created a budget at the beginning of this year based on projected numbers that they thought we were going to have to start. So all their numbers started out based on their projected numbers. So the only thing we have now are concrete numbers to compare what they based that budget on, and which means that it becomes obvious that, and they can rebuttal this, but from my perspective, they based their numbers on a beginning balance of $96 million. And they have a balanced budget because of that. Right. All those things that Ms. Christakis is talking about is based on those assumptions they made when they did this projected budget. In this case, it turned out that the ending balance was more than what they had projected. So my attitude is, then the board should have the ability to spend some of that money. They should be able to identify to the board how much of that money that they did not foresee is ongoing and one-time money. Because here's the reality of it. When times were bad, You created a budget, and you may have got your unaudited actuals, and things were even worse. So at this time of the year, we were realizing that our numbers were worse than what we thought they were at the original time of the budget, and then we had to make even more critical cuts.
And that's why I said, can we determine an area of when it, because it's always going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
But if we say a designated percentage or whatever that may be, if we land there, obviously if we land in the opposite, there's nothing. But just to help us determine when we get here, is there something to spend or not? And if it's not, there's some kind of formula to say, no, here we are, we're at 7 or 8 or 10 or 11. We don't go beyond that number or that percentage or that, whatever that breakdown is. I'm just trying to get us to a place where, because we could take the argument and say, it's there and there's these things we need to do for the kids, and how do we justify not doing it? But I'd like to justify it with a justification of something that we have established as a board and said, when we are here, we're not going to do anything else.
Okay, and I know Dr. Flores has a comment, but I know Mr. Marsden has a quick response.
Just to comment, Ms. Rogers and Mr. Tillman,
Can you speak up?
Yeah, just a comment about the board and the board's mindset around a reserve, right? Or how much money do we hold back? You have a mindset of use today's money on today's kids, and we appreciate that and understand it, and we honor that and we work toward that. It is a philosophical discussion you have to have as a board. It's something you have to come to an agreement with. If you set an amount or if you set a parameter, that's something you come up with as a board. I do know from my experiences where I find myself right now, the direction I'm giving to the team is we're in a cost containment mode because times have been good so long, I'm getting a little suspicious of times remaining good. Just like in my own house, I'm going to exercise caution. So what I lived through is what you lived through from 2006 to 2012. The experience for kids during those crises times was not as great of an experience as some of our kids are getting today. And so how we plan is an important discussion for us to have. The message I have internally with our team is cost containment, holding back non-essential carryover funds of some mission critical. We're holding those things back. What you have before you is a miracle that we worked around getting $16 million worth of requests back in June accomplished, and we have about $1.5 million that plays out in what Janie shared with you now, that we've reduced several $1 million of staff requests and other things we'd like to do, but we've reduced that to get it in within that realm of 1.5. So again, we can do anything we want. We can't do everything. You've heard me say that 1,000,000 times. And I do think it's important to think about today's kids and also plan and set aside for tomorrow's kids. So that's just my philosophy and thought, and I want to share that.
Okay, Dr. Flores?
Thank you, Dr. Marsden. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I also hear what Mr. Tillman is raising and Mrs. Rogers. Mr. Tillman, I just want to clarify with you. You're raising, are you listening? I'm asking a question. What Mr. Tillman is raising is, do we have to put in reserve $20.9 million? Is that what I hear you saying? Is that what you're questioning?
Yes, I don't, because we don't, I mean, to me, and maybe I'm wrong, and Ms. Christakis can clear it up, the reserve for the $20 million worth of reserve for deficit spending, I'm assuming that means that it's projected we're going to deficit spend by $20 million in what year, 2018, 2019?
So you can look, at line 3, you see those deficit spending on the way out. It doesn't add up exactly to that because we've incorporated cuts as well to make it work.
Right. So I know a lot of this is you have to show on paper in order to get the positive certification. I understand that. But if you look at and I always come back to this. If you look at our I guarantee you, every budget, they probably projected we're going to deficit spend by $20 million. And I guarantee you, if you go back for the last 5 years, they've done that. In the last 5 years, we never deficit spend more than $1 million.
Right. So, and I hear what
And
Mrs.
that's the reason why I've said this for the last, I don't know how many years. We started out with a $60 million ending balance, and they said it was going to be $40 million. Then it went to 70.
Right.
Then we had a $70 million ending balance. They said it was going to be 50. Then it went to 80.
Right.
Last year, I looked Ms. Christakis in the eye. She said it was $80 million, and this year was going to be 70, and it's 105. So those are real numbers that are going up. So those are real numbers because that we said we were going to spend money, and we ended up not spending the money because we actually the expenditures weren't as high, and we had more revenues than what was projected. But to be clear, it'd be really easy. They could, because you've given them, she has a lot of padding in this budget. My only point is, I don't want to see the money that is realized right now in unaudited actuals, even if it's just $5 million, just to do little things. The board, there should be an item on here that says, we should get a little letter, okay, board, we did great, and we're going to let you have $5 million to spend. We think $2 million is ongoing and $3 million is one-time money. If we don't do that, when we have the first interim, they're going to have this real fancy words to say, you don't have no money to spend. And we're going to take that money and make sure something 3 years or 4 years from now are taken care of. So, I feel comfortable that when you realize the savings at the unaudited actuals and you compare it against the budget that they presented, you've given them the chance to say, this is what we think we're going to have, and we've agreed to it and given it to them. But there should be some room for the board to be able to spend money that is undesignated.
And I hear what you're saying because we are the board. We're the ones that decide how much money. We're the fiscal agents. Dr. Marsden and his team give us recommendations. But we are the ones that decide, do we want more from the reserve and not just 1.5? That's what we have to decide as a board in terms of, what we see needs to be done or where we can spend money. I personally, back when we were discussing the LCAP, the one I just asked about, I believe, on the one-time allocations, the parents wanted 6 counselors. But I remember we discussed that was too much money, we'd have to wait and see. And I recall that I did say, because I actually went into the California Department of Education and looked at our numbers and our stats. And I saw that the 2 high schools that were the most needy were San Bernardino High and Arroyo. So we had a pilot here in Indian Springs we had a presenter present, and I mean, it was phenomenal in terms of raising their academic achievement and their mental health and so forth. So the parents, I was at the LCAP meetings, wanted this, but we said no because we don't know if we're going to have enough money. And so I'm representing them in terms of, okay, if we can't have 6, let us have 2. We now have money, 1.5, or we could have more. Our African-American kids are not doing well in math. What are we going to do? Our gifted program. Our gifted program, needs to be enhanced. Our VAPA needs to be enhanced. So, I mean, we have to decide as a board what we want to do.
I thank you for that. And then, Mr. Gallo, you had a comment? Mr. Gallo?
Thank you. And just to put this in perspective, we got $669 million or so that's revenue / expenditures. They're pretty close. That's about $1.8 million a day. Your reserve is 2%, $13 million. That gives you 7 days of operation. I mean, so this is, when you look at reserves here, this isn't exactly a reserve that's going to preserve the organization and have it go. If you're down to requiring the expenditure of reserves, you're in a whole lot deeper trouble than you're ever going to be in by managing, $5 million here or there. This is just, I mean, you put it in perspective, and this is a big organization with a lot of expenditures. Again, a couple $1 million a day, basically, 1.8 something. And, that's a challenge to manage. And the other piece that really is in my mind on this, unless you're going to be, putting in reserve 25% and something, and you think it's going to tide you over on some, you just imagine a hiccup, any kind of a hiccup, even cash payments, that can be your interest payments on some of your daily, your daily draws if you thought about it in that perspective, and could be eaten up in so many ways. So I think the goal is to spend what we've got in the year that we've got it. And that's the real issue, is having the kids benefit in the year that we say it's going to. And, this is not saving for a rainy day, a 2% reserve. A 9% isn't saving, 10, if you did 10 times or 5 times our reserve, it's only going to keep you going for a month and a half. So it doesn't even pass the sanity check that this is, going to provide you any kind of financial comfort. So I really don't understand the whole reserve issue anyway, because you're toast if you're down requiring reserves to operate.
And we've achieved full funding this year, so the conversations will be different. We will, as Dr. Marsden said, look at cost containment. We do have a number of costs that continue to grow that were really imposed on us. But what the great thing is we can do everything on our part to ensure kids are coming to school, ensure that their day-to-day instruction is outstanding, and our increase in our attendance brings in revenue. That's the easiest way to mitigate cuts is to bring in more revenue, and to have kids in school is a win-win. And so there's just other things we have to look at as we are now at projected full funding.
Right. And then when
we
I
still
look
are
at
declining.
things, thank you, Janie. When I look at things like the textbooks, and I know we've had more than our reserve in this for a long time. Are we making those expenditures? Are we actually spending $14 million on textbooks?
Part of it got deferred.
Man, talk about
to
a
this
cost containment issue in my mind. There's got to be especially in the digital world, there's got to be a better way than this. I'd rather see us buying Chromebooks and having it all online, the textbooks and stuff. But I don't know. Those are kind of things that we could be thinking about. And again,
a typical adoption. A typical textbook adoption is around 5 to 9 million. And so what you see here is a carryover. We have social studies adoption next year. We have science adoption the next year. So we're carrying those dollars over to be able to afford those textbook adoptions, which are between, our smaller ones are like 5, 6, and our larger ones are 10, 12. To make sure that, according to the report that you saw earlier around our textbooks in Williams, our Williams requirements are still requiring real textbooks. And so there's still a transition between the e-print stuff and the online materials. So Williams requirements are still requiring real textbooks in every case.
Yeah, because you just think about these kind of cost containment things, and to have one, and by the way, the thing we just approved said you got to have one for home and for school. I mean, so you got twice as many textbooks as you're really going to. Who uses them? Who does them? I mean, they are marginally used, and our creative teachers and things are creating a lot of their own stuff and doing a lot of their own lessons based on the stuff. But I mean, I just look at like large expenditures like this, and again, textbooks is just one that's more than our entire reserve. I mean, so It's hard for me to, get all worked up over a
So
reserve.
I have a comment regarding the reserve.
Yeah.
I know I've been patiently waiting because I am the board, I'm at the position I'm in. But one of the questions I have is, I know the intentions of the reserve, if something happens, we want to make sure that we're prepared for the following school years. But the question keeps on arising as, if we were ever in need, we would only cover how many days? And so I'm wondering, that would be in a worst-case scenario if there's like a world disaster or something that prevents, so those kind of cases, not where necessarily the state is no longer going to give us any money, so we only have a limit. So when we have those conversations, I just want to be more of understanding. I'm thinking the reserve is more for the next fiscal year, not necessarily when there's a disaster and we have no other ways to pay.
So
the employees.
some things that happened, Ms. Medina, during the really difficult years is we were getting mid-year cuts. So during the depths of the recession, sometimes the cuts were coming, or they were threatening, I should say, to cut us mid-year. And so that's part of the dynamics that happen when California goes through a recession. So it's not always the next year.
Okay, so it can happen within the year.
It could, hopefully will never happen again.
Okay. And so my other question is on page 12, which is the LCAP program descriptions activities. This is the funds that's already been spent or is allocated to be spent. I know it says allocations budget, but I just want to clarify what that's funding that is.
This you approved in June, and so one thing we did is we didn't wait for the carryover. We knew we'd have a little bit when the one-time funding came in less than expected, and the LCFF came in a little bit higher. So this was put into the budget this summer,
Okay.
after your approval in June.
Okay, and the reason why I'm asking is because and I know how important, that's one of the things that I ran as a school board member, the professional development of our educators. But my question is, $5 million, what does that look like? And how much, so for me, you have to have professional development for all our teachers, but when you have, conference type, so I want to know more information on what that looks like, because it might be something that's not necessarily needed. And I'm not saying the professional development part's not needed, but the money that goes into the bigger scale of high-end conference style. I don't know if that makes sense.
The $5 million we really need because of the cuts that we had to make across all programs to make this budget work. So what we've done is to say, I will pay for the professional development opportunities across elementary instruction, secondary instruction, technology, student services, special ed. This fund is paying for a variety of issues that we've cut as a result of trying to make these board requests work for our school district. So if we cut that, it will seriously debilitate some of our programs.
So then there's no conferences within this?
There's plenty of conferences, there's plenty of trainers, there's plenty of consultants, there's plenty of materials to do training, there's plenty of extra duty for teachers, collaboration time. There's a lot of things in this.
So in previous years, like the last 3 years, what has that professional development look like in the cost?
So it's
Is this low end, is that what you're saying?
It's an essential question about how we believe schools move. So we invest heavily in teacher training. Kids spend 70% of their time on campus inside of a classroom. The success of our district desperately is tied to the skill and ability and knowledge of teachers. So in past years, professional development was handled within the program. When we've had to cut to cover some of the board requests, also some of the community requests. I also want to remind the board that during last year's LCAP development, the board asked staff to hold an additional 4 meetings to nail this list down. And so this represents the fingerprint of our district. But what the cuts that we made to other programs, what we were able to make those cuts because I'm assuming the professional development costs for those programs. So, for example, if we're like we have Common Core, English Language Arts, and training teachers to understand the Common Core better and to implement those new materials in the classroom, it costs us to bring teachers to the district office, train them for a day, give them materials, coach them, and push them back so professional development is formal professional development where you have an expert standing in front of someone teaching. You also are paying for the teachers to attend those things, and then sometimes we're pushing teachers out to conferences. So for example, in the AVID program, we want AVID, but teachers have to be trained to do AVID. So the cost to train our teachers in AVID was $200,000 to send all our teachers down to San Diego, train them for 3 days, and bring them back. So we can't expect teachers to implement high-quality instructional practices without providing them the support that they need to do it.
No, and I agree with that, but I guess the reason why I'm questioning is because I think it was in last year where there was a line item for a conference, and so that was a high dollar amount for a 2-day conference. I'm not questioning the fact that our educators need the training and should be receiving the training. My thing is, what does that look like and within this amount? So that's
And one thing that may help, we can provide the board with over the last few years, what's the dollars been spent on professional development of staff? And then what we can show you is perhaps a return on investment. Has that helped our academic scores increase? So we can look back during the years of deficit, how much was spent on professional development, what were our academic outcomes, what are we spending on professional development now? I mean, because that's the bottom line, right? I mean, the bottom line is to produce a return on investment for those dollars.
I guess, but what I'm trying to say is that maybe I'm not explaining myself. So with the extravagance of having, you can have professional development. We have the professional development building. We have maybe other interviews. When I look at how extravagant, I guess my thing is, so I'm not questioning the training. I think it's beneficial. I'm just wondering what the extravagance is, maybe limiting some of the extravagance. That's all.
Do you mean going off-site?
Well, off-site is good on the sense, like when you look at, like you mentioned, the AVID training. Of course, we're going to have to send educators to the AVID training and so forth.
Which then involves them staying in a hotel.
Yes, and so, yes. But I guess I'm just trying to figure out where, if it all matches, great. I mean, if it shows that this is what we're spending, it's just, I'm just looking at the extravagance part of it. And when I mean, it's like, these big venues and the, it's just different, okay.
So
maybe I'm not clarifying myself.
So I understand.
Makes sense.
Okay. And then, so that was just my thing, because, and then if there's some areas, so that was it. Okay, and then Dr. Hill had a question, and I'll go ahead and transfer with Dr. Flores.
Thank you. And mine's not really a question, but as we talk about what we consider the over reserves, we have to keep in mind that we are also taking a look at the late start school time, and we know that's going to involve more funds, and I haven't seen any allocations for that. And mainly, we don't know how much it's going to be. But if we're concerned about the health and wellness of our students and their productivity at a decent time during the school day, I'm hoping that we will consider using part of that or some funds from someplace to consider, especially going back to beliefs. If we believe that's good for kids, I don't think we can sit back and say we don't have the money to do it. I think we have to take a look at allocating funds for that. So I'm hoping as we take a look at those funds, we put a dollar amount in for late start school time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Flores.
Madam President, I just wanted to support what you were saying about professional development, because that's what I spent my entire career on. And it does matter, long-term, over time, staff development is the most productive. Sometimes one-shot deals going to conferences are really valuable because it ignites teachers and so forth. So it depends on, the purpose. Because, you can be reinvigorated by just hearing one speaker in a conference situation and so forth. But I think in our district, we do long-term staff development. We're doing site where the teachers are addressing and prioritizing what they need to do. And that's important because that's their site. And so I think the majority of our money is being spent on that. And so it looks like a large amount, but for our district, with 3,000 teachers, $5 million is a minuscule. And so, but I do think we need to know, how are we definitely, allocating that money, and what is it that we're doing? And so that we can see the results. It looks like a lot, but it really isn't. It really, really, really isn't. So my next question, Madam President, I don't know, maybe Mr. Tillman can help out. I think our next order of business is to decide how we're going to reallocate that 1.5 million, right? Or are we going to take some money away from the 20.9?
And we are voting on this.
And we are voting on it. And I would like to recommend that we honor the parents, the DLAC parents' requests. They had wanted 6, but I know 2 would be okay to start, because then we would have 3 counselors. I also saw in our board correspondence about the mariachi, that you're going to continue, that you're just really starting the investigation. I asked for that 3 years ago, and to have a district-wide mariachi. And I would hope that we could allocate some of that money so that we can get started this year, instead of, analyzing. And our kids, I don't want to, I'm not going to berate us, but we have 76% Latinos. Mariachis are phenomenal. That's in our DNA. Not just Latinos, but the whole society. And Rialto has them, Colton has them, Corona Norco has them, Moreno Valley has them, and San Bernardino doesn't. And we're one of the largest districts in the area. So I would like to allocate some of that money, 50,000, I don't know, to get them started.
So then that's, what would that be?
2
look like?
counselors.
Just 2 counselors.
And the parents, and my research, and I did state this last June, that Dr. Marston, Arroyo, and San Bernardino were the lowest performing.
Yeah,
in terms of
we're
ELs.
very clear, and I know we've had this conversation around staff's recommendation. So if I could just draw the board's attention to slide 13, this is the allocation recommendation from Cabinet. We whittled down a $5 million request to 1.45. So what you have in front of you is there currently, and so just would ask you to give us your feedback. You can, as with all recommendations from Cabinet, you can accept, reject, or modify. And so this would be where you would have your discussion around what you'd like to do with the 1.5 million, because that's where the 1.5 million is currently being recommended by staff.
And I just want to be mindful that I went to a conference. It was the Ed Trust West Equity Forum, and one of the questions that they posed was, are we doing things for to meet the needs of our students or people's wants? And so we have to be people's wants. So students' needs versus people's wants. And so we have to really look at what is going to impact our students. And I know with this district, they provide recommendations because these are the areas they feel, as experts as well as in the districts, I want to acknowledge that piece, is this is what they're recommending that would help with the work with our students. But I understand that board members also see areas where we need to make sure that we're supporting the needs of our kids in the district. So just putting that out there.
So what does that mean? I didn't understand your comment.
So just making sure that whatever we decide with this money, that it's, that we take into consideration
Right.
what meets the students' needs, not
Right.
necessarily the people's wants or the
Well,
adults' wants.
basically, that's what we should be doing, is what is it that our students need? Yeah.
Right. So what we're going to be spending the 1.4?
I mean, this doesn't make any sense to me. It's obvious you got $1.4 million. Why have a discussion about it? I mean, it's $1.4 million. I just showed you where, based on the actual unaudited actuals, you got an extra $7 million. So 1.4 is nothing. Spend the money. Am I missing something?
So 3.6 million had to go towards the list that the board approved in June. Leaving 5.1 million was the extra fallout for unaudited. There is 1.5 million left that's undesignated right now.
Oh, so you're saying that somewhere in this budget, it shows where you guys accounted for, because Mr. Christopher, I haven't seen anywhere in any of these papers where it takes into account the new
Slide
numbers.
number 3. Again, this is just the reconciliation of the annual receipts and revenues for 17-18. Many things are occurring currently. We're looking at enrollment. We're looking at all the different things that happen, and we'll present the first interim report, which will update the current year.
But Ms. Christakis, I understand you're saying these are numbers that came in and different money that came in from local control funding, but this is not taking into account the unaudited actuals. It's not. And there was a time when we used to take this period where we realized what the unaudited actuals were, compare them to the budget. This on page 3 is the budget that you guys are talking about for 2018, 2019. It has, unless I'm wrong, it has nothing to do with.
Yes, so we didn't get the 16 million. If you look, the board approved 16.4 million in one-time extra spending in June. The LCFF came in higher by 3.9 million. The one-time discretionary, we did not receive 16 million. We received 8.5.
Gotcha.
So that's why it's short there, and that's why we're using the reserves to fund the list that the board wanted in June. So part of it, I think, in the past, you've waited till September for some of these allocations, but because we thought we were getting a sizable one-time dollars, we made the allocations in June.
Okay.
So you acted earlier than now as a board because we had shared confidence that we were going to receive the dollars that were being promised. If that makes sense.
Ms. Rogers?
Dr. Martin, back to your page 13.
Yes.
Can you get closer? Can you hear you?
Page 13.
That's the one you were showing us earlier, right? Or was it page 13? And these were things that, did you refer to these as on hold? That we
I'm
weren't
sorry,
able
say
to?
that again?
Were these things that were not able to do, or things that we did do?
So these are staff's, again.
Recommendations, right?
There were over, I think, Janie, $5 million worth of requests.
But you
that
narrowed
were
them down to
needed to
this.
be done, and staff went back to the mat for a couple days
Mm-hmm.
and worked with team members to try to reduce that to, because we only had $1.5 million, not
Right.
5.
But
And
is
so
this in
that's-
the budget or out of the budget?
So this is, it would be in addition to what we already have going on within
But is
the
this
district.
paid for, when we're talking about the 1.5?
These would be new things that we would want to do.
That you would want to do?
Correct. So we haven't funded these things in the current budget. Is that the best way to say that?
Yes, that's what I'm trying.
This is going to be a silly question, Ms. Janie, but on the 2017-2018 budget, you have this line item that says undesignated, unappropriated, $20 million on page 1. Right, but then the number then you have where it says reserve for deficit spending in the 2018 unaudited actuals. So does that mean you took the number from the unassigned, unappropriated and decided to make that the reserve for deficit spending?
No, that's what it was meant, and when we presented it to the board in June. And so that's where we had it designated on the sheet, on the first sheet.
So I just want to be clear on this. So from a practical perspective, what does that mean?
We set the money aside because we have deficit spending in the multi-year projection.
Projected deficit spending?
It's projected, and we have to show that we have reserves beyond the 2% to cover that. We did try to make some cuts so that we wouldn't have to set aside more money. And as we get closer to that time period, we'll have to have a discussion with the board about the types of cuts that we would have to make in order to contain cost, particularly around PERS and STIRS.
Okay. So we are voting tonight, so then this is something that if we're going to start looking at page 13, which ones we feel like, okay, we do definitely want to support some of these areas, or we want to include some, and then if we can have like a dollar amount included with that.
Well, let me ask one question, then I won't have any more questions.
Okay,
But you have on here for 2019, 2020, that the beginning fund balance is going to be $63 million.
That was based, so these are what was presented to you in June. And we just put them in the unaudited book as a reminder, because you will often ask, where were we in June? So these are references to what was presented to you at the adopted budget in 18-19.
Okay, and so they've been adjusted already, and
It will be adjusted at the first interim report, the multi-year projection.
you know, you do sense I mean, maybe I ought to spend time, come meet with you guys, because I'm confused. When I hear you guys talk about there's a $14 million in books,
Where the discussion hasn't
and Keenan said the reason for that is
Everybody's
because
on board.
of, you put that there for ongoing book adoption. That doesn't make any sense to me either, because and it gets back to part of it. You don't know if this is one-time money or ongoing money. You guys haven't decided that yet. So if he has $6 million in there, and that $6 million is ongoing money, he doesn't need to put $14 million in there so he can cover 3 or 4 years out. That's a whole lot of money. And what I see happening is, if he really put this in the budget, if you, the finance people, put the $14 million in the budget, how do I know you didn't put $14 million in there for ongoing money? And then for all those years, he's only planning on spending $5 or $6 million out of the $14 million, which means that I have all that money is not going to be spent.
So, Mr. Tillman, we'll show you what we've spent on the textbooks, and what we've tried to do is, because it goes like this. And so there'll be a big adoption that's very, very costly, followed by maybe one that's $5 or $6 million. And so when we received one-time dollars over the last couple of years, and Ed Services put the plan together of the budget adoptions, we're trying to ensure that we're funding them with those one-time dollars and not disrupting the budget in other areas in order to pay for those adoptions. And we can provide you with that schedule.
Yeah, and I can tell you, for the last few years, we spent a lot of ongoing money on one-time things, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, a lot of the money we set aside to be spent is not being spent. I mean, it's the same thing with the Chromebooks. I had a person that, 'cause somehow the message is not out totally, but at King, somebody, you know, you can get a Chromebook, and then they go to the principal's office. We don't really have any Chromebooks. That's a program, but we don't know how to get them. So some of this stuff is not going to be spent because the schools still haven't decided they're going to spend the money and take advantage of the programs we have. So that's why I think we have a lot of money left over at the end of the year, because even though we have money allocated to these programs, the money doesn't get spent. So. And if you say, well, is Danny right, or the finance folks right? It's obvious I'm right, because every year you guys project that the ending fund balance is going to go down, and every year it goes up. And it goes up because that's real money that's not being spent. It's real money that's not being expended, and it's more money coming in that you guys are saying is going to come in. And I'm not saying go overboard and spend a lot of money, but I am saying that some of the stuff that we're talking about doing should have some validity to it. And I really think that, I know it's because of a program I led, but I really think the Chromebooks program is a perfect example. We shouldn't have students in our district that don't have a computer and the internet at home, and some of them don't. And I think a lot of it is because, I don't know why we don't spend the money. And we set aside millions of dollars for that. And I already know, if I go back and look, there's going to be a lot of that money that wasn't spent even for the Chromebooks, because we're not making an effort of getting them out there to the students. But I know I went off on a sidetrack, but I I just got a bad feeling about it, but
Okay.
I'm not going to go all night. That's my last statement on the budget
All right,
tonight.
Mr. Gallo?
Yes, thank you. And Janie, the budget for deficit spending, that we're carrying on for that's basically to cover that 3-year period, so we get, fully qualified statements.
Positive.
What do they call
Positive
that?
certification.
Positive certification from the county. That's based on really the board's commitment that we're not going to make any cuts. Is that a true statement?
It's based on our budget.
We're not going to.
A couple things we've done, because I've listened to the
but
board's
cuts in
concerns
people.
around what's our trends around vacancies, what's our trends around different things. So we've incorporated, so it's not as conservative, those trends into our expenditures, knowing that we don't spend everything. But as those costs continue to go up, we've reached full funding, so we're not alone here. There are districts that are cutting already because they don't have the unduplicated count, they're not as, there's a number of reasons, declining enrollment, large amounts.
Like us.
And
right.
so we want to continue all the things the board has put into place, but we know in order to, based on our projections, that we're short. And we did build in some more aggressive savings, and we had to incorporate cuts in order to balance the 3-year. Now, many things change, and as we get closer, we'd have to bring to the board, these are the things we'd have to cut once we've used these reserves for deficit spending.
Has any of this been people that we've got
So
in positions, but I don't think we've done any people.
So we look at enrollment trends, and we look at if there's going to be 300 fewer students, there's going to be fewer teachers, and eventually that can impact classified staff and other staff as well. And so that is built into the projections, and that's been accomplished through retirements and, that sort of thing, because we do get a number of retirements every year, and then we don't replace all of that.
Got it.
And so that's built in.
Okay, thank you.
Based on our ADA projections.
Thanks,
enrollment.
Janie.
Okay, great. And then Dr. Flores, and again, I want to make sure that we go back into that 1.4 just to make sure where are we planning to add.
So just to clarify, on page 13, this is, Dr. Marsden, this is what Cabinet is recommending for the use of the 1.5 million.
Correct.
Okay, so we have 20.9 million. Board, we could take 500,000 or 900,000, and they would still have 20 million in reserve. So that we could recommend also where we would like the money designated and spent. So that's something, I don't know what you guys think about that. I'd like to hear your comments.
Well, my comment again is to try to have some kind of formula when we're here.
To what?
To have a formula for when we are here. Because this is the number, and then there's a percentage, so now we're changing that percentage. But we need to be able to say when we're at this, then be it things that the district needs to do, or it's our board priorities that we need to do, we're landing on some kind of formula versus, okay, we'll do it all, because we're going to go over to the next page, and
Right.
Even when I look at that page, I mean, I don't even know what the African Americans can do with 261,000. I don't even know what it is anymore. I don't remember. I know we talked about it all night, but that's just one thing looking at it, like what's really going to be impacted, because when I look at this DNF report, that's a whole nother story. So what are we really doing to put us in a position that we're going down the road with these things that are major issues? And these Ds and Fs are major issues, and if we're not pooling, and I would hope the district will be able to share with us, these things that are on here, where are those things lining up? I don't know about the study trips or athletic events, but, I don't even know what E-rate is. I'm not sure, but perhaps they are things that work towards that academic piece before we get into some other nice to do things. But before we make that decision, because where we are right now, it sounds to me, we want to make the decision on what we didn't do the last time, and then we would be done with this conversation. But I think we should do it with some type of formula, some type of saying, these are the numbers to let us do that. Because the 20 million, we could take, according to what I've heard tonight, we could take whatever we want out of it, you know, and say, we're the board, and we made the decision, now it's going to be 15 per.
I think we
15
can
million,
still
but
do that anytime.
What we can, but how can we land where when we're listening to Ms. Christakos and taking into consideration what she's saying and what we have to do with our budget, how can we do that and still do some things that we weren't unable to do the first time we were making these decisions?
I would like, we're the board, and I respect the cabinet in terms of your recommendations, but there are also, you know, we're elected officials, and kids come to us, and so do our constituents, and, you know, they see things that we don't see. And they talk to us. And so I want to also be able to recommend where the money is designated as well. It just isn't, you know, it should be like a marriage, you know, you're working together.
So, you know, one thought is, you could go a couple different directions, Board. One is you could approve the report as it's presented, including the recommendations of Cabinet, and then wait until first interim, where you can look at your enrollment data to see what is that saying in terms of future outlay. Look at your data. You're going to have a better sense of what does our data say. I have a hunch that you're going to look at some data and say, you know, we need to put some dollars heavily in certain areas based on what the data say.
It will be 6 months, we'll have only 6 more months. I mean, I don't know, we're wasting time.
The other option is that we can, you know, they're not big dollars you're asking about. If the board is in agreement on any topic, whether it's, you know, you've mentioned a couple items or you have some other items that you've talked about with each other, you know, those are things that we can look at and bring recommendations to you for reductions in other areas. Those are a couple options to work our way through this, absent of a, you know, deeper or longer budget discussion.
Mr. Gallo?
Yes, thanks. Dale, are any of these consistent with the board priorities that we had not funded fully? Were, like, I remember the linked learning piece being
That's
part
important.
of that was a board priority, and
Yeah, I'll say all of these are in line
came from
with
that list.
All of these are in line with what
These
have
are
been
all
the priorities of the board and the district. All of
Yeah,
Janie
because
or any
these,
cabinet
some
members.
sound awfully familiar, that, you
Sure.
know, we had in our, when we anticipated a larger, you know, expenditure. I don't know, there might be only one on here that I'm not sure I remembered, but.
Yeah, we can characterize those. I don't know, Janie, if you want to have yourself or staff characterize
Because we're going
these.
through a lot of numbers, let me just go through it
the
really.
linked learning one I remembered.
So on the innovation grants, this was a school, and I don't have it on the top of my head,
Yeah,
that
20
their
grand
conference
isn't
was for
exactly.
July. So that's why,
I
now,
got that.
okay.
Yeah.
The Career Pathways Linked Learning, that was an allocation given by
Right.
the board for 3 years, and this
I
is year
remember.
2.
Yeah, I remember that.
The study trips, I think those are field trips, and that was also a board request, and this is money that Dr. Mitchell's office gives to school
And we
sites. So-
voted on these priorities, right? We
Yes.
prioritized them, and I would imagine.
But these are
I'm guessing, I
additional.
don't have the priorities in front of me, but aren't these the
They're
priorities
just
that we?
carryover, so most of them are one-time dollars, and they didn't spend it all. So one thing,
these are
on the
additional.
technology warranty program, this happened before I started. I think it was Mr. Tillman's recommendation, instead of sending warranty money out to companies, we maintain our own warranty program in-house.
And
So
buy
school district-
additional.
Our
right,
school
yeah.
sites have already contributed this money, and it holds so that we can replace or repair their computers over a number of years. So this is I'd like to be able to carry it over because they've invested money for repairs in their computers, but we'll work around it if you make another recommendation. And then E-rate is a federal program that allows us to do a lot of our infrastructure with technology, and sometimes we pay for money ahead of time,
and then we get reimbursed, and sometimes we get things at a discount, and this is just that E-rate fund for infrastructure that's carryover.
Let me ask another question. Did we recapture or say we're not going to give our sites carryover dollars
This year we
to
did.
fund some of this stuff, and didn't notify them of this? And
We
now
did.
we're requiring that they actually cut funds, our site funding?
No, we're not, we did not, we announced that we would not be doing carryover.
I'd heard that in management.
But
that
we
you-
did not ask them to cut that. They get their annual allocation every year, so there were no cuts at all. They got their annual allocation.
What, so
I
you
can answer the
don't,
question.
they all got their carryover, so the
Last
things you
June-
reported?
Last June, we told principals that they would not receive LCAP carryover. For your information, Board, the schools carried over $2.2 million in LCAP dollars. So 2.2 million. We swept that money to even fund the budget that you're looking at. But we told them in June, and then we reinforced last month that they would not receive carryover dollars. Some of our schools left 100, 150,000 on the table. And so they get their regular annual allocation for LCAP. And so what happens is we give you LCAP dollars, you spend, May or June, Janie's office does the ending balances, and we had 2.2 million in LCAP funds.
But then
unspent.
you're just encouraging people to just make the spend,
No,
even
what
if,
you'll find,
or it's slow roll.
Or, for example,
what you'll find is people that don't spend money are not going to spend money. So to give somebody, say
with you.
somebody had $150,000 to spend this year.
But some people, from what I've been hearing anyway, already had it allocated and already had it expended and in their minds,
Yeah,
and
Mr.
it was
Gall, I
held
can-
up by
yeah.
procurements.
Mr. Gall, I can speak to that because I actually led the conversation with Cabinet, with all of our site leaders. Many did forget the conversation we had around you're not going to carry over LCAP dollars. And then my comment back when I saw some gasps that they're not going to be able to carry those dollars over was if you have mission critical carryover, let your supervisor know. It was a loud and clear message.
Okay.
And that was the
I
direction
didn't-
they had. So
I
if they're-
didn't get that feedback.
And some of
Yeah.
those things are in here. Yeah, I understand you didn't get that feedback, right?
But can I send a message out just to all administrators, because they're in a position now where they're managing budgets, and from a government budget perspective, the key is to spend your money as soon as possible. Because what they don't understand is they only have until when they start school until probably about March or April to actually spend that money, because you have to get estimates, right? So you have to build all into it, getting the estimates, buying the stuff, and getting it in takes a long time. So to think you're going to wait until May to start buying your stuff, it's not going to happen. And usually the folks that do that, they make the same mistake every year. And if we were to go back and look at trends for certain sites, you would see that the sites that don't spend the money and carry over, they never spend the money.
Could we?
Madam President, I just want to go back to what you said, Dr. Marsden. I think all of these items, Cabinet, are very crucial. I think they're very, very crucial. But I'm frustrated. I am so frustrated that our EL kids in high school do not get the services they deserve. I've been on this board for 10 years. 10 years. I was taught by my dad, you watch what people do, not what they say. That's really who they are. And you put your money where your mouth is. And I'm just frustrated. I am absolutely frustrated.
But Dr. Floyd, you want 2 counselors, right?
Right.
That's not a big deal.
But Dr. Marsden says, we'll do this, and we'll see if we can find the money.
well,
The money is there.
So
the money is there.
just
The
do the
money is there. It's in reserve. Why can't we take some of the money from reserve and use it?
Well, it doesn't have to be.
You know?
It doesn't,
I am.
we're making this too complicated, though.
Sick
It's not hard to
of
find
saying we
2
can't.
positions.
I know. I really, really am. And I don't like the gatekeeping. I don't like that we're not, doing, like Ms. Rogers says, where are those Ds and Fs? What are we going to, target?
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
I
I'm
think you
frustrated.
misheard, because I said these are small amounts, and we can recommend reductions in other areas to accomplish
But I
your
don't want you
direction.
to recommend reductions in these areas.
I didn't say these areas.
Yeah.
But if we're going to do something beyond what we have here recommended, then we'll need to go back and make those reductions. It's just like a home budget. It's math. It's not a philosophical piece.
But you guys got to trust me on this. This is very frustrating for me. If we have a $700 million budget, and that's what we have, Mr. Christakis could easily find $200,000 to put 2 positions in. You have vacant positions all day long. I can guarantee.
So how much is it for each counselor?
You could go back and look at positions for the last 3 years and find positions that have been vacated for the
Mr.
last 3
Tillman,
years.
there's no question. I'm not questioning that. We're looking to the board for their direction tonight. Board, if you have direction to take any other
Do we know the
action-
cost? Dr. Flores? Dr. Flores? Dr. Flores, do we know what, because I heard 2 counselors and I heard a different number. What is it that because it hasn't been mentioned. It's
What?
kind of, what is the cost or what was the request?
I think a counselor costs $100,000 with benefits.
You said 100,000?
We're looking at Dr. Wiseman.
So 200,000.
I
was
have no
two
idea.
It was 2 counselors we're talking about?
Yeah, so 200,000, 250,000 for 2
So we're
counselors.
talking about 2 counselors, right?
Counselors for 250.
Right.
So we're
And
talking
that's
about
going to
2
be
counselors.
salary and benefits, ongoing.
Okay. Now, is there a way we can actually approve?
Ongoing and not.
Is there a way we can approve this, but eliminate, maybe just put a pause on page 13, which is the carryovers, and looking at, because the thing is that otherwise, where are we going to allocate the money from?
But isn't this plus that still not at 1 point?
Going through these priorities.
No, let me just
I don't wanna-
clarify, Board. If you're, in addition to what you see in front of you, if you're going to give us direction, we're going to accept that direction, we're going to accomplish that direction. I don't know if I can be more clear. This has been how I've practiced with you for now on my 7th year. You give us direction, we implement the direction. You ask us for a recommendation, we gave that to you, we've qualified that, and now if you have additional direction, we'll accomplish it. We've always done that. There's not been one time we haven't done that that I can recall.
So the
Okay.
1.5.
So if you
are
give
we
us
talking about-
direction now,
Right.
then we will take that direction.
And I just want to be clear, that
Where's it
the
coming out
1.5 is what we were talking about, because I keep hearing 1.4, 1.5. 1.4 is on this page, right?
So I
And then
think.
1.5 is the
I
total
think we're
amount,
talking
plus
about
200,000.
2 separate things. I think we're talking about, you have the unaudited actuals that you're about to take action to approve,
Right.
or either accept as recommended or with some changes. The changes that you might have is you accept as presented and you want to fund a couple additional things on top of that.
Right.
Then we'll go to task to make
But
that
is
happen.
it's possible to fund what we just said?
Yeah,
Which is the
I'm
2
gonna-
counselors and that page.
I want to make a motion that we fund the recommended carryover and find 2 EL counselor positions to fund.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? No, let's go ahead. Repeat the motion, please.
It's to fund the request for carryover as identified on page 13, and to fund 2 counselors for EL students.
So we have a motion and a second.
Any discussion? Now, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. Thank you so much for the report. This was,
Thank you, Board.
but I just want to be mindful, just let you know that although we had a long conversation, my whole intention is to make sure that we have these conversations. We are still on time. We're like nine minutes behind, because I like to rush areas that are not necessarily full of conversations and actually have deep conversations in areas that are important. So just me keeping that in mind. So 10.0, reports and comments. 10.1, report by San Bernardino Teachers Association.
No report
No
tonight?
report. 10.2, report by California School Employees Association. No report. 10.3, report by Communication Workers of America.
We have a
coming.
report. She's on her way.
Come on down.
Yes.
We're in 10.3.
Okay, good evening, Board, Cabinet. I hate to do this, but earlier on, I got really excited when we were talking about the Community Engagement Plan. And I wanted to say that many of us at Communication Workers of America as substitute teachers were involved in the beginning phases of that. And we had many people with expertise in different areas. We had at least 2 people that had experience in special education, and so they went to the special education section. We had 1 member who had 8 children go to San Bernardino schools, graduate and get professional degrees above and beyond, and all become employed in, really lucrative, good jobs. And we hear too much about how people in San Bernardino are all trauma-informed and cannot accomplish anything, and oh, yes, they can. He has 8 children that prove it, okay? So we need to have what they call higher expectations, because even though we do have those terrible community conditions, with the right support, the kids can make it. And I think sports have a lot to do with it.
Right.
So every time I hear you, wanting to increase sports and the payment to the coaches, I think that's a great thing. Okay, we also had members who had experience working with institutions, and they went on the health and safety committees and made their recommendations. Some of them in special ed were parents of children that received special education in San Bernardino very effectively, and they were able to go into those committees and talk about their personal experiences with a great deal of knowledge about what it took to get through those programs successfully. Okay, we were involved in the very beginning, and it's very exciting to see what has happened, and I want to thank San Bernardino Unified School District for what they've done for substitute teachers. As a result of all of that, we have half-day orientations. We have 4 half-day guest teacher trainings per academic year. We have 2 days of onboarding where we learn how to do everything the San Bernardino way. We have PBIS training, which helps us to seamlessly go into the classes where the other teachers are using PBIS. And as soon as you say to the students, the expectation is that you will, they go, she knows the routine, she knows what it is. And they're posted all over the schools, okay? But they need to know that you know it. So we have that training. We have mandatory reporting, which is state requirement. We have a new bullying requirement, which not only follows the definitions of what bullying is, but it also, we're working up procedures for how to deal with it when you're in the classroom. One of the things that is basic to all of this accomplishment is the basics for excellence with which we start every single meeting. It just brings us right back down to what's important, what people are feeling, and what they want to offer. So thank you very much. I agree with Dr. Flores. I commend us for what we've done. It's just been really good.
Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your comments.
And we have a lot of good kids in the district that are doing many great things. 10.4, report by San Bernardino School Police Officers Association.
No report.
Okay, 10.5, comments by board members, and if I can go ahead and start off on the side of Dr. Wyatt, because he has not spoken as much.
Thank you, Madam President. And, well, that was a rather robust conversation on our budget, I'll just say that much. And, thank Janie Christakis and her team for a very detailed report. I know that's a lot of work put into it, and for us to analyze such a report, I'm glad we have some folks on our board that have a good background in budget. I'm still relatively new to that, but comprehensive report. Just wanted to touch on a few things. And one, I was looking over our board correspondence, and was rather gleaming, and I know we've been concentrating on this, and I don't want it to be a negative comment, but just an emphasis on our students. You know, we talked a lot about how we want to spend our money and how we prioritize our spending our money. And when, you know, I looked at our D's and F's report, and Dr. Mitchell, thank you for a very, very detailed and comprehensive report for our middle schools and our high schools. You know, we have a pretty high percentage, but one particular population that continues to stand out both in middle school and high school is our chronically absent students. And we know that that's going to be a major issue on our California dashboard. It's a major issue for myself in my job. And I'm looking at the students, and we'll say, is that a lot of students? And well, in middle school, we're looking at about 1,000 students. And just for math alone, D's and F's are about 53%, and in English language arts and mathematics, 56% of our chronically absent students. And so I don't know, you know, if we're targeting those populations, I'm sure we have a strategy behind it, but it was just something that stood out to me. And then same population in our high school students for our A through G, English language arts, and we have more chronically absent students in high school with about 1,500 in English language arts and almost 1,300 in mathematics, and 52% D's and F's, and then in mathematics, 64.6%. Those, again, are gleaming numbers, and I know Ms. Rogers has brought this to our attention. I appreciate that from her as well, because this is a point of emphasis that we really, really have to focus on. I know we're raising the dial on graduation rates, which I think is fantastic, but it looks like we have a little bit of room to improve on our A through G, not just our grades, but our A through G completion rates, and get that up as well. So for me, that was just something I saw in our reports. And then on our West Ed Special Ed report, another great report that I saw here, and just for our audience out there to kind of give our community an understanding of what we have to deal with as a district. In the past 10 years, our district has seen a 22% increase in our special ed population versus 11% in the state. So we've had twice the increase in the number of students with special needs in our district. And when you talk about budgets again, and when you look at encroachment on our general fund, it would be really interesting to see what that number is. And perhaps, Janie, you may have that off the top of your head. That would be great, Ms. Christakos, but I imagine that that's quite a figure. Looking at that, and I know Mr. Gao might be talking about this a little bit himself, but my only concern with our study from West Ed is, it's a great report, but I also want to look at our sample size of the folks that were surveyed. And it wasn't a huge sample size, and it's a snapshot of what we have to do, but keep that in mind as well, that the sample size wasn't that big. I believe it's like 100 and maybe 20-something folks, so only one principal, I believe, maybe a couple of vice principals on the survey. So, take that into consideration for my colleagues when you look at the report as well. So, other than that, I'll end on a real good note. Ms. Cardinal, and I can't remember her name.
Junelin.
Can you say it again, Dr. Marsden?
Junelin.
Junelin was crowned Miss Cardinal, and I know I had to leave a little bit early, but Dell and I were talking, Dr. Marsden and I were talking, we were sitting next to each other, and I said if I was a betting man, it would have been on her. So I'm glad that my bet came right, and congratulations to her. I'm sure we'll see her soon at one of our board meetings, but to Jamie and his folks and Dr. Gutierrez at San Bernardino High School, great job again. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah. Junelin Parafina.
Dr. Flores.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a couple of things to share. I don't know if you all get EdSource. I just sent it to all cabinet, and I asked Karen to send it to you. There's a new report called Getting Down to Facts. It encompasses 36 studies by California and national researchers. It examines governing, funding, and staffing policies and practices that have strengthened and hindered student success in early education and in California's public education. Stanford University and the Policy Analysis for California Education coordinated the effort. 7 foundations funded the research. The first Getting Down to the Facts was in 2007. This is the second one. And the studies, there are 19 briefs, and the briefs contain both summaries and the full studies, and these are the topics: funding schools adequately, measuring student achievement and demographics, facing up to early childhood, using data effectively, governing financing of special education, continuing to improve under local control, creating a coherent state system, investing in student health and mental health, meeting English language learners' needs, developing, distributing school leaders, improving teacher practices, addressing the teacher shortage, measuring LCFF's impact on student achievement, measuring the level of satisfaction with LCFF, implementing Common Core, revisiting charter schools, financing school facilities, and financing pensions. So this research is current, and I believe we should read it. We should read what their findings are, and to inform us as we move forward with our strategic plan and the different 9 strategies and where we're going. And Ms. Christakis, like you said, in terms of our pensions and our benefits, I mean, what does the research say, which will back us up? And I also want to thank you and your team for a very comprehensive report. It takes a lot, and appreciate it very much. And so, I just saw it, I think, a day ago, and I forwarded it to you, Dr. Marsden, and all the cabinet, and also Karen, I would like you to give it to all of us, send it to all the board. I think that, just like Mrs. Rogers said, what is the formula, or what does the data say? What does the research say for us? And like my colleague, Dr. Wyatt, just said, okay, we have this data, what are we going to do with it? Where are we going to go with it? What can't, you always say, what can we do? We need to do all of this, but what can we prioritize and do? And that's really important as we now dig down deeper, not from up in the plane, but we're on the ground now. We're not in the balcony, we're on the ground. What are the things that we need to do for our kids? And it's important. It's very, very important. And where do we spend our money? How do we, and it's important. I don't want to belabor about our ELs, but this new bill with AB 2735, what is just like we have this report from Ed West, I don't know who we could get to come in and do a report, not just sample, but actually dig in and find out what are our middle school and high school ELs, where are they? Where are they? And how can we support, and where are we doing really well? Not just when we're not, getting, but what are we doing well and what are we not doing well? So I would like to propose that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. Dr. Hill?
Thank you, Madam President. A couple of briefies here. I saw a presentation from Dr. Ron Powell on many miracles. I'll leave it with the superintendent. I know some of you have seen that, but even though this presentation was for first 5, it would be good for our elementary and middle school, the concepts, and they're just extremely well done. And, again, he mentioned that he had been working with some of our teachers on that. This morning I had a chance to go to UCAN College as usual. They were there offering scholarships to students, and Dr. Charles Brown and his staff had done a good job organizing to the point that people weren't stumbling over each other. I did get a chance Sunday to go to the Golden Grad Class 1968 at Cal State, and there were 2 people there from the first graduating class, which was 1967. So enjoyed the festivities there.
Is that when you graduated?
No, no. I graduated before 1967, but with my bachelor's, but I graduated from Cal State with my master's in 1980. But the other thing I just want to share, and I guess I'm frustrated also about the budget, but for a different reason than Dr. Flores, and I can understand her frustration. My frustration is, and has always been, and I still don't understand the concept, because you don't take $100 and go to the grocery store and say, what am I going to buy? You make your list, you go to the grocery store. If you spend $100, good. If you spend 80, good. If it comes to 120, you have to put something back. And I still say, when it comes to our students, as board members, we should be able to give you our wish list. This is what I'd like to see happen this year. It doesn't matter to me how much money is left over if we're doing what we need to do for kids. So I'm hoping next year when we take a look at our budget, we take a look with giving us the opportunity, and I know you always ask, but giving us the opportunity to say, this is what I'd like to see done this particular year. And you can come back to us then and say, you know, you're out of your mind, it can't be done, or, you know, that's reasonable and we can do this and have money for another project and things of that nature. Because I think what we went through tonight, to me, was just absolutely ridiculous. I don't know any other way of saying it. The thing that I want to say is I do pretty good, I think, in following Robert's Rules of Order. But when there's a big discussion, and I feel sorry for President Medina because everybody's just speaking out, and I'm trying to listen and comprehend, and it got to the place, I just closed everybody out, I guess, a good 20 minutes ago. Because I really didn't know what you were talking about. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't care. Because I know we pay Cabinet lots of money to do what they do. And I think when we come here, it's either approve or you don't approve. And all the discussions that's going on should take place elsewhere. If there are some things that you don't understand or what have you, or either make recommendations. But that's all I'm going to say there. I'm just hoping as a board, we have done pretty good together, but I think we need to understand that we are a board, and if I'm confused, I know people at home watching this probably turned this off at least an hour ago. And I hear from them. So I'm just saying, we got to do better if we expect our students to do better and if we expect our staff to do better. And tonight, we are not considered good mentors for anybody. That's Margaret Hill's opinion. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hill. Ms. Rogers?
Thank you. Just a few comments. I do want to say, I don't know if anyone knew, but Ms. Handy was from CEEM. They gave her recognition for Principal of the Year. So I wanted to say that before she left, but I know she left, but hopefully the district, I think Dr. Marsden, you were down there with them. And you probably have in your notes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But also had an opportunity to go to Ms. Cardinal every year. It was so exciting to see one of our board members already stepping up and just even doing more than what she was so excited, and we were excited for her. So when she comes back, we'll definitely congratulate her. I also wanted to make mention, I went over to San Bernardino High School for their bullying workshop just to visit with the parents and check in on that. But so when I had a student escorted me, and of course, you know, I'm familiar with San Bernardino High School because it's my alumni school. But I went to the building Z, I think it was, in the back of the school, and the student escorted me there. And then when it was time for me to leave, I was walking out myself, but I noticed that there was lock gates here and lock gates there and lock gates everywhere. And I think some rule or some sort had been put in place some time ago. Dr. Volkmer, you may be aware, but they lock the gates and it's just like prison maze in there. So I don't know, you might want to revisit it, and it looks like it was like that because these signs were put up to say to lock the gates. But I don't ever remember the gates being like that. But it was like a total maze. You have to walk totally almost to the back. I saw students back there on their phone, and our board member, what is her name again? I'm sorry. She sits next to you, Daddy. Casimir. Casimir had a very, very good point. As I was walking in the back of the school leaving, there were students that, you know, obviously didn't want to swim, and so they were sitting on the bench and they were just on their phones. And we've noticed that over the years, you know, a lot of, I work with students that get D's and F's in PE, and that used to be just the automatic A, but either they don't want to dress or whatever the reason is, and we really should look at other opportunities. I think that's why she mentioned out, can we get involved in some of the things that she saw on that list, Dr. Marsden, that she saw on the list that they were doing. They want to do those things. They want to do jazzercise. They want to do different things. So that might be something that we could look at getting our students back involved, because those that were sitting on the bench that were on their phones were doing nothing but, you know, wasting brain power. I thank you for the BCs. There was a lot of them and still got to work through them. But there's one that Dr. Hill, you were responding to Dr. Hill talking about the middle school transition. I definitely hope and would like to see that in the middle school transition of all the things that you have listed, we definitely are talking to the parents and the students about D's and F's also, because the accountability is on both sides. So that's important. I think I have D's and F's probably on every sticky I had here as I was doodling, but I want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Menares and her team. I was asked to go and present on IEPs and STTs and all of these things, and I couldn't believe they had asked me to do it, but I was willing to go explain to their staff, but I reached out to Dr. Menares, and her team went and did a fabulous job. And that was another opportunity to connect to the communities, because many of these providers are providing services for our students on the campus, but they don't really have a relationship with the district. They see us as the school district. But it was great. The staff just said they want to do more collaboration, and that was huge to do that, because we have Valley Star and also Uplift Family Services, who I work with, same type of thing. Those relationships are important. So appreciative to that. The BC on the absences, when we talk about chronic absenteeism, I'm just wondering, again, you know, should we, when it's 10 absences, and the reason why I had brought it up before is because someone indicated to me that there was a perception of it's not a shall, or not, or whatever the wording says there, about 10 absences, you fail the class. And I know we had a student in our program years ago that if it wasn't for working with her and all the times that she had to go to the hospital and she was always out, and she would have never graduated, but we work with her to ensure. So I'm hoping we're doing the same thing and not just saying 10 absences and I don't know where they are, because this is where we live. This in our city, it could happen for whatever reasons. But, you know, just to look at the D's and F's and realize that a person who's going to keep getting up, coming to school, if they're arriving just to get D's and F's, if they're already out of the box. So that it's just
time.
D's and F's are huge.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that was a loud time. But D's and F's are huge, and so let us please be mindful. Everything connects to D's and F's, as far as I'm concerned.
In case
Thank
you didn't hear
Karen.
it, Ms. Rogers.
I better get going before I get done. I
just
get
want to be
gonged.
clear.
It's like the Gong Show, right? I mean, I love it. This is great. I got three things. One, there's an entity, and I think I've told you about this before, called Z-Space. Z-Space is basically a 3D viewer type interactive, engaged digital media platform that has instructional materials in earth sciences, physical sciences, medical sciences, et cetera. They came out and gave a presentation to a number of teachers at Bing Wong, Curtis Middle School, Indian Springs I know was there, and a few other schools and stuff. And they actually, I'd like them to actually bring a proposal, or at least talk to the board, or however, maybe just submit a proposal or something for how we might be able to pilot some of this at some of our maybe more mature career pathway opportunities and see how they could get it in. I know, Dale, you've had some experience with those guys when they first emerged, and their platforms are just amazing. You wouldn't believe how it's used professionally by medical doctors to perform advanced surgery in advance of actually having it done. And it's 3D software. I've never seen the fidelity of this kind of stuff. It's
our
amazing.
boy, that is loud. Our typical approach with vendors or items that are available would be to have staff look at those, and then the
Right.
staff to choose
Great.
to fund
Take a
those
look.
things. And
Yeah,
so it'd just
take
be
a
a
look.
matter of identifying those that want to do that work. That wouldn't
Great.
take any board additional action to have the dollars.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, when I'd like to request that you do that, then I guess if the board, is in favor of that, just take a look at it. Barbara was with me.
Right,
on
so it's
this
like
stuff.
any other vendor that we might come in contact. Like Mike
Great.
said, I saw this product before it was ever on the market. I got to research a number, look at it, and there's a number of other products out there. So what we want to do is have staff be able to understand and see what's available. The principal, the leadership team, and staff, and then the staff makes a decision: is this in our priorities as we fund these things? And try it out, a pilot, and that would be how I would recommend that we fund that. That way, we don't get into the practice of identifying things that we think as
It's
yeah, it's a bottom-up approach,
I've never seen
if you
anything
will.
like it.
Yeah.
It's a 3D. I'll explain it to you.
Is that it?
They'll come in. Yeah, no, I got one on kind of transportation, I guess, is really the topic. When we look at safe routes to school, we look at us ultimately moving to a schools of choice mindset here. And, Dale and I met with some parents at Jones today, and it seems to be a common issue on how we're going to address transportation. Not only for, the late start stuff, that's going to be a major issue if we end up doing this. But I think we should form a task force or some kind of group to look at this to see how we can come up with a different model than just transporting from, designated sites to a specific school and then back again. I think we're going to have to do some route planning and really some different types of strategies, maybe even bus changes and things like this to ultimately provide this community with that kind of a interactive transportation system, so to speak. And, Dale and I were chatting a bit earlier. It's going to probably involve our Omnitrans and a few others. So I'm thinking maybe that belongs in like our strategy number 9 as maybe a subgroup or something of this. So just make that recommendation. And then the Ds and F report, I really appreciate that, getting that. It was a lot of fidelity in that. But I'd like to actually see maybe a dashboard on this, so some synthesis of the data to say, all right, how are various schools doing just from a data standpoint? Maybe it's averages, maybe, and I like all of the disaggregated data and all, but it doesn't really give us a decision point. Like there's a lot of different parameters going on there. So I'd really like the staff to take a look at what's going on with it. I remember Mr. Tillman brought up that we wanted to see, are there specific classes and classrooms at very specific schools that seem to have that higher percentage that might be driving some of these Ds and F at our various schools that we saw the averages for in the report. So I think I'd actually like to see a more high fidelity look at it, but in a higher level. It's like an assessment done to say, look, here's what we've noticed, what's going on. And I know it'll take some time to do this, but if we're going to get a hold of it, we got to know first what the phenomenon is, what's happening. Is it specific classrooms? Is it specific teachers? Is it specific? What is it that's driving this? So I appreciated the data, and it's alarming enough, to see a third of our students basically getting Ds and Fs and varying through the quarters and stuff. But I think that would be my request is if we could have some synopsis of it and maybe analysis that says, here's what and come up with a game plan. Here's what we're going to do about it. So that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tillman?
Yes, a few things. I know we had the UCAN event today was at Cajon. I was out of town, but I had some students from my BFL program attending and talked about getting offered full ride scholarships and accepted to many colleges, so it's still a great investment, I think, for the district. We had the BFL program and took the kids to the King Tut exhibit. If there's other sites out there, school sites, if you have money for field trips, it's a great field trip. You have a number of items at that particular King Tut exhibit that are out of Egypt for the first time, and they'll never be out of Egypt again. So if you wanted to see the actual artifacts that came out of his tomb, it's just amazing when you see it right there in front of you, and the sophistication and the beauty of it is just, amazing. So I would encourage the sites to consider taking their kids there, and I think almost any age would benefit from going there. The question, Ms. Christakis, on the, I know we did the Chromebooks. There were, what middle schools got the one-to-one? I know it was Golden Valley, it was Curtis.
Do you know which one's got the one-to-one? No, because that was separate, I think, than the Chromebook Home Initiative. So we could get that to you.
Yeah, and here's what my concern is. We did an excellent job of rolling out the Chromebooks to some of the middle schools one-to-one. Yes.
We have a one-to-one program at all of our middle schools. And we distinguish the one-to-one between the one-to-one and the Chromebook initiative. So in our minds, those are two different initiatives.
I can't hear you. What'd you say?
We have a one-to-one program at all of our middle schools currently. We also distinguish that program from our Chromebook program, which is getting kids devices at home. But we also have a one-to-one program that devices stay in the classroom, and there's instructional methodologies. So we spent the last 2 years, we started with pilot school of 4 to 5 schools, and then we added the rest of the middle schools this past year. So currently, all of our middle schools have a one-to-one program, which entails staff development and the use of instructional technology with.
But that doesn't mean they're taking them home, though.
No, we distinguish the one-to-one program with the take-home program, which is different programs in our minds. So the $3.5 million per year that we spend on Chromebooks is different than the one-to-one program. We did the one-to-one program out of LCAP dollars. We did the Chromebook out of LCAP dollars. Yeah, but different, very different purpose. The purpose of the Chromebook initiative that you've advocated for is to close the digital divide, so that kids have devices and internet access at home. The one-to-one program is integrating technology into instructional practices.
I got you.
Does that make sense?
So I do want to make sure that the sites realize there's a process for the students who don't have a device at home to get it. And the one site, and I didn't get back to you, Ms. Christakis, you're always readily available, and I appreciate that. But the one site was King, and I'll get you the name of the student. But we just need to make sure that and I guess maybe you guys should come back to us and tell us, because we're all out in the community. If we're talking to a student and we say, do you have a computer at home? They say no, and we tell them, is there a person they go to at their site? Are all the principals aware of the program?
Yes, we've been running for 7, 8.
So we can tell them that's the person they can contact?
Absolutely. Principal, admin, teacher. I mean, you also got to remember our transition.
Okay.
Yeah.
I visited, they had an event at Devil Ale, went real well. I think they're doing a great job there. The new administrator, I think, is providing great leadership. I did get a request from another one of the employees. Do we have a standard on the number of security guards at our middle schools? How many security guards are at the middle schools?
I believe there's 2 at each of the middle schools, and then you're going to have 5 or so.
Can you check, because they told me that Devil A only has 1.
Actually, Mr. Donahue, can you share that info? Who oversees the?
Ideally, with the full staffing, we should have 2 at every middle school and 5 at every high school, but currently we're down a few, so we based it off population of students,
So how many does Devil Ale have right now?
1.
So I think it's critical that Devil Ale has 2 security guards, only because we want to help them be successful. I think we all agree on that. So if we could look into that, that'd be great. And another subject came up. We talk about the absenteeism and the number of our students that are homeless. And sometimes we lose sight of this, but do we have programs that when a kid comes to school and they can't dress, that we find ways to get them the gym clothes?
Absolutely.
Well, the sites don't know about it.
Sure they do. I mean, most sites have an internal process, loaner clothes. We also purchase, we purchase PE clothes above and beyond the needs of the site. So those things work. If you tell me a particular school, I can make sure that happens.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
Because I think that's
not
Don't forget Threads. It's operated out at Pacific High School.
Right. But I'm talking about specifically
Gym clothes.
I'll give you a prime example. If a kid is getting dinged because they're not dressing,
right,
and we know we have a high homeless population in our school district, a kid doesn't know how to express, I don't have money for gym clothes. What do you want me to do? So I don't know what we do to build that into the process, but somehow we have to have the discussion. If you notice a kid is not dressing, it has to switch from being punitive to someone saying, we have a problem and we can get you the gym clothes, and once we get them to you, because if you give them to them and they dress, then it wasn't their problem.
Got it.
And I think we lose sight of that, but I've heard it.
Let me get the name and we'll handle that straight away.
All right, so I'll tell you about
as well as overall process with our schools.
Our overall process, what I'm hoping we do, I'll have the individual people at the site contact you.
Absolutely.
Because if the counselors don't know that the students, because it came from a counselor, my students getting dinged because they're not dressing, and they're not dressing because they can't afford the gym clothes. So I'm sure that's something we can take care of.
Absolutely.
Right. And then last, just kudos to the superintendent. I got an email from my boss about, they're calling this Generation Go. So it's the project they're doing with the, you don't have to say it, don't say it. But it's the workforce development. But here's the thing. So they sent me emails, so asked me how many students I can have. So I'm gonna make sure I get some San Bernardino students. But I think the word that needs to go out to our sites is there's 135 internships they're going to allow, but we're not the only school district. It's ourselves, it's Colton, it's Grand Terrace. So I really think we should make the push to try to get as many students into these positions as possible. They're going to allow the students to work 120 hours, and they have to put in the hours before May, and it's going to be paid for out of the workforce development funds. But to me, it's just a great start. And Dr. Mars, I know we have our own internship, but it'd be great too for you to send out something like that. Maybe you have to our internal departments, and we have an exact number of how much we're going to hire. And the county did a great job of listing the different career pathways. And I'm hoping that if there's a student that's not in a pathway but still wants to work, we got to find some way where they can get a chance to get some of these internships, because it's just too critical. I'm telling you, this changes lives. When you introduce a student that's disenfranchised to an organization like the county, and they go in and see all these positions, then their whole world changed. And then you talk about creating hope. That does it. So I'm going to hire some of these folks, and just want to put the word out there that the program is going.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. So
but I got to say this, I got a different take. I think the board did a great job tonight. We had a good discussion. And I know Dr. Hill gave us an F, but I gave us an A tonight.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tillman. The thing is that we did have a long conversation, but you're right, there was moments, Dr. Hill, that, we kind of got lost. I was a little confused in some of the areas, but I think that was, in my part, it was healthy because I was able to kind of hear your perspective, and then, of course, Dr. Flores' perspective, and then as well as the other board members. And we're still on time. It was a long part, but we were still on time. So then on my thing is that I mentioned earlier, I went to EdTrust West Equity Forum in Sacramento, and we had Dr. Marsden was there as well, and Dr. Mitchell and Suda. Honestly, one of the sessions, they talked a lot about EL EL students. And that's why in high school specifically, with regarding the bill that you mentioned earlier, Dr. Flores. And one of the quotes, it says, English learners are placed in remedial math courses at rates twice that of non-English learners. 5% compared to 2%, and placed in, so anyways, the whole point was that there is a huge need in making sure that our EL students in the high school level are not necessarily just taking remedial classes, that they're actually getting the necessary classes for the A through Gs, making sure that they're, because in our district, unfortunately, they shared data information statewide. We are way below the statewide, even the county-wide for our EL students in meeting the A through G. And so that's something that I was in support of what Dr. Flores was promoting in counselors. But I think it has to do, we have to do a lot more, because at the rate that we're going and the amount of students that are not, we're doing a big disservice for the amount of students that are not meeting the A through Gs. Another big conversation at the summit was on special ed, and that's a big push for me. I know Mr. Gallo mentions about career pathways for our special ed, but I also want to look at making sure that we provide opportunities of college-going, higher education for our special ed. And there was many advocates in one of the rooms that I was at that their children were never expected to even go to college. And because of parent advocacy and parent engagement, they were able to prove them wrong. And so we have to make sure that we don't forget about our students. I know there's great career pathways with trades and so forth, but we also want to make sure that they are meeting the A through Gs, and that's also a big option for them. So those are my two comments. Also, moving forward, I'm going to take advantage during my board comments. Is moving forward, we're doing good time, but I want to be mindful that for future, when you look at the consent items and action items, try not to repeat what the other board members said, and that way we can, keep the conversation going with relevant material and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and finish with that. So we're going to go with Dr. Marsden, 10.6, comments by superintendent and staff members.
Thank you. I'll try to speak quickly so I can be brief. So you did hear we had 3 actually employees recognized in the first annual Cooperative Economic Empowerment Movement, CEEM, at the LA County Fairgrounds in Pomona. This is a bi-county recognition, so Riverside, San Bernardino County. Keisha Handy as principal is recognized. We also had Joe Polino recognized as a classified employee, and our chief of police, and Gwen Pittman, counselor at Aurora Valley High School. And so we're excited for their leadership and recognition. We were, as Ms. Medina mentioned, at the Ed Trust West Conference and the NABE Conference at Ed Trust. They actually gave us a preview as they were unveiling the Getting Down to Facts work. And so, Dr. Flores, you mentioned that. It was released on Monday. We were able to be there at Ed Trust West to get a preview of what that might look like, and so excited to read that report and see how we might learn from that. Also got to meet and get my picture with Sylvia Mendez, and I did a little recording with her. Hopefully I can get the recording to Linda to get it to our community with Sylvia Mendez from Mendez versus Westminster. You may recall that power of that case. I sat on a panel with the National Association of Bilingual Education speaking on our multilingual initiative. And I'm excited that in talking with Ms. Medina and Ms. Rogers over agenda review, we are going to bring the multilingual initiative an update to you at a future meeting this year. So looking forward to that. Black Rose ceremony, we honored our own Ezekiel Adeleke, working in our technology department. He is just such a great model in this community, and it was a pleasure to see him recognized and his family there. You already heard all the thunder about Miss Cardinal pageant, so I won't echo that again. I did meet this morning with an action committee from the city of San Bernardino who's looking at rebranding. So the CEO of Omnitrans was there, the CEO of the county was there, several other CEO leadership, President San Manuel, et cetera, hospital areas. And so really a great conversation about how we do this work collectively. I did take some time to speak about Generation Go. I did talk about the work we're doing internally to hire kids as interns within the district systems, as well as within the county systems, and encouraged other folks, and some folks from Caltrans actually said we would be disappointed if you didn't include us. And so thanks to Ginger, thanks to the workforce's investment in Rose Gonzalez, who's a full-time employee with us to do this work. We also had a meeting on Monday, yesterday, with the Airport Authority. They're going to be taking some interns on as part of Generation Go. So this is really getting momentum. This is an outgrowth of our work with the Workforce Development Board. Much of my recent conversation after the last Workforce Board meeting, I had the wonderful opportunity to meet with, again, the former U.S. Ambassador to Switzerland, and she's now been employed by the state of Washington to take on this work of similar nature around apprenticeships, internships, and I met the gentleman who is running for governor in Colorado, who's now leading CareerWise Colorado. It's a statewide movement on apprenticeships and internships. She said that when we take this on, we'll be the largest district in the United States to take this kind of work on once we employ all of our kids in Pathways. So I'm very excited about the possibilities there and shared that. Also, just a couple I also attended the UCAN conference. Was pleased to see my colleague, Redland Superintendent Mauricio, there as well. He's excited about that UCAN conference, and he's looking at taking and spreading that love to their area. I want to invite you and remind you that the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools State of Education Address will happen Thursday, September 27th. Please contact Karen if you're able to attend. And then the Century Club luncheon, as a reminder, this year we're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony for our welcoming center and luncheon. So if you can make it Wednesday, the September 26th, love to have you there. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you so much. September 26th, yes.
Which is Wednesday, next week.
Well, we're going to go ahead and move to 11.0, consent calendar item. First of all, let me have a motion. Okay, any items to be pulled?
Some discussion. So first, if I could, on items 11.28 and 11.37, I know Ms. Rogers wants to recuse herself as she is the founder, CEO of Young Women's Empowerment, and those two topics can be discussed maybe at the end of your action, 11.28, 11.37. And then on item, we're adding an item board based on an emergency request. We've had 2 swimming pool boilers out at San Bernardino High School, so we'll need your emergency action. We'll list that as item 11.41, and we'll vote on that also distinctly in this.
And Dr. Flores, you have an item?
Yes, and I would like to pull 11.2.1. I have to be recused.
11.21?
Yes, 21.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Going once, going twice? Okay, let's go ahead. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. Those remaining ones are approved. Let's go to 11.21. 11.21, let me look for it in my...
That's yours, Barb.
11.21, amendment number 1 to the agreement with California Association for Bilingual Education, Covina, California, to provide professional development and consulting to support the district's multilingual initiative and English Learner Master Plan. Can I have a motion? Second. Okay, any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 11.28. 11.28, renewal of the agreement with Young Women's Empowerment Foundation, San Bernardino, California, to provide the Empowered to Excel program at San Gregorio and Pacific High School and Del Vallejo Middle School. Can I have a motion? Second. Any discussion? Not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 11.37.
So moved.
Hold on.
Second.
Renewal of the agreement with Young Women's Empowerment Foundation, San Bernardino, California, to provide Empowered to Excel program at Cajon High School. I have a motion, I have a second. Any discussion? Now let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried. 11.41, and this one I'm going to read. 11.41, emergency replacement of 2 swimming pool boilers at the San Bernardino High School, prepared by Business Services. Be it resolved, Public Contract Code 2113 relieves the governing boards of school districts from bidding requirements when emergency repairs, alterations, work, and improvements are necessary to permit the continuance of existing school class. I have to read the whole thing. I have to read the whole thing. That's what they said. Do I have to read the whole thing?
For the sake of the public, since it's not a
Because it's not on
published
the
document,
agenda.
we'll go ahead and do that. Yeah. we'll
Okay.
go ahead and do it.
So where did I leave off? Okay, continuance of existing school classes to avoid danger to life or property. Board of Education's unanimous approval is required for the emergency request to the county superintendents of schools asking for the approval to enter into the necessary contracts in writing or otherwise of behalf of the district for the performance of labor and furnishing of materials and supplies for this purpose without advertising for and inviting bids. Board Policy 2122B allows the superintendent to take emergency actions to ensure safety of students. Be it resolved that the Board of Education unanimously approves an emergency request to the county superintendent of schools asking for the approval to enter in any necessary contracts in writing or otherwise on behalf of the district for the replacement of the 2 boilers servicing swimming pools of the San Bernardino High School in order to prevent the cancellation of the daily water activities involving the boys' water polo and swim teams, as well as the hundreds of students who utilize the pools during PE, physical education. The emergency work requires a contract to remove, replace, and install new 2 boilers in San Bernardino High School's pool room. The total cost for removal and installation is estimated not to exceed $75,000 and will be paid from the Routine Restricted Maintenance Fund, RRM. Be it resolved that the Board of Education authorizes Deborah Love, Purchasing Director, to sign all documents deemed necessary for the replacement and installation of this equipment. Requester, Director, Maintenance and Operations, and Approver, Chief Business Officer, Business Services.
And you have a motion by Mr. Tillman
Okay.
And a second by me.
and a
Any
second by
discussion?
Mr. Gallo. Thank you.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. Are all of our pools heated?
Yes.
Every pool at all the high schools and everything
Yes.
like that? Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
in the
Do we
winter it gets
actually-
pretty cold.
Do we actually use them?
Yes.
Because I mean use the heaters, because I've actually tried it, and man, I wouldn't go in those pools. It's freezing. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion carried.
Thank you for your
Then we're-
unanimous support.
Okay, so then now we're going into
Action items,
12.0, action items, 12.1, personnel report, number 6, dated September 18th, 2018. Dr. Wiseman, are there any,
Madam President, correct me if I'm wrong, como presentado? Is that right?
Sí, como-
As presented.
como, that's right, that's right.
moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Now let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, motion
And
carried.
if this could also come with a remedial English language coach for
That was
Perry.
good, that was good. That's okay. Okay, 12.2, amendment to Board Policy 1330, Civic Center Act, second reading.
So moved.
Okay, any conversation, any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Okay, say nay. Motion carried. So now we're going to page 37. Did I just pass it? Okay, I was rushing.
12.3.
Okay, San Bernardino Unified School District resolution for exemption of the separation from service requirements pursuant to section 21.4.1.5 and or 26.8.12 of the Education Code. Janice Craig.
So moved.
Any discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 12.4, board ongoing initiatives. Any discussion? Oh, well, I need a motion. Any discussion?
Abigail, where does that where do we say it needs to go? Multilingual initiative, you're going to add to
So the multilingual initiative, they were going to do the presentation. Dr. Morrison
Yeah, so
mentioned
what
it.
we'll do is Cabinet is going to update actually item 12.7, which will be future agenda items. We'll work in a report to give you an update on the multilingual initiative.
Okay. And so, any further discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 12.5, board top 10. Any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 12.6, board requests, follow-ups. Any discussion? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. 12.7, future agenda item, and this is where the multilingualism is going to be added. Okay, can I have a motion? So moved. Okay, all those in favor say aye. I forgot to ask for discussion. Everybody's okay? Okay, so they're going to add that. So let's call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion carried. I just hear, I don't even hear it yet. 13.0, summary of board requests. If you can be brief, Dr. Volkamer.
I'll be as brief as you allowed me to be this evening. Number of requests that the board gave us this evening. Be sure to capture the recommendations from the board in regard to the instructional materials and incentive program that came up earlier today. So those are captured. We'll make sure we build them in terms of English learner materials and special ed materials. Number 2, find out about the money from is it SB 2735, and how we might use that money in terms of benefiting our middle school and high school students. And then I actually combined that one with one that you brought up, Mrs. Medina, about remedial math and our English learners being placed into remedial math. Number 3, review the research briefing that was sent by Dr. Marsden by Dr. Flores in terms of how it might help us with our overall planning and elements of the functions of our district. This is from Dr. Hill, develop a process to establish a board wish list as part of the board's budgets discussions. Double check the gating system. Mrs. Rogers, was it at Arroyo? San Bernardino, I'm sorry. At San Bernardino High School. Explore enhancements to our PE program, and later I'll talk about the loaner program. Clarify the 10 absence rule. That's actually already on the agenda. It's already on follow-up. But I did write that down. Explore the Z-Space program as a pathway opportunity and how it might benefit the students of the district. Consider a task force on transportation and how we might look at optimizing efficiencies and service, both efficiencies and service to our community. Take a deeper look at Ds and Fs to create decision points with an example of going to the class level, individual class level. Establish and make sure that the community and students know about a go-to person at each school for our Chromebook initiative. Review CSO staffing for DV and make sure that they're fully staffed. Review, and I'll combine that with the PE program, review the loaner program so that students are not dinged unnecessarily for not dressing in physical education. Aggressively pursue Generation Go internship opportunities for our students so we get at least the lion's share. Maximize career pathways and A to G experiences for special education students. And then I wanted to point out, board, that the multilingual initiative will actually we'll make the adjustment on January 8th as part of the LP KPI indicator. Excuse me, that was right, double. As KPI presentation. That will go along with LP, so we'll include the multilingual initiative with that. We think it's appropriate to do it there. And that's all I had.
I think Danny also requested that counselors and teachers know, or let students know how to get PE clothes.
Yeah, I said.
Did you put that?
It's with the loaner.
I must be losing my hearing.
I called it the loaner program. It's the loaner program.
Oh, did you call it that?
Yeah, that's what most schools have.
And I also had requested exploring doing a report similar to at West Ed's special ed report for our middle school and high school ELs.
Could you say that one more time, Dr. Flores? I'm sorry.
Doing a similar report
got it.
that West Ed did on the special ed, but targeting our middle school and our high school ELs.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, great. So now we're moving to 4.14.0, which is adjournment, but then we're not going to adjournment. We're going to be going to closed session because we still have some items. But I do want to mention for those in the audience is that, if there's anybody else left, no, okay, never mind, that there are no action items. We were able to vote them, no action items being discussed.
Did we report out already?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
I did. And so then, so initially, the meeting will, after this, it'll be done, after the closed session. We don't have to come back out. We will not be reporting out.